Chapter 421 Punish the Scumbag. At noon the next day, the bell for the end of get out of class just rang, and everyone went to have lunch. At this time, Makoto Ito, who was sitting in front of Naruto, also got up and quickly left the classroom. Just when he arrived in the corridor, Naruto suddenly stopped him behind him. "Makoto Ito, wait a minute." Ito Makoto was slightly shocked, turned around, and a reluctant smile appeared on his face. "Naruto-kun, what's the matter with you?" Naruto's eyes were flat and his face was expressionless, making it impossible to see what he was thinking at this time. At this time, there was no one in the corridor. Looking at him with a calm face in front of him, Makoto Ito suddenly felt a little flustered. "Naruto-kun, if there's nothing else, I'll go to eat first." Makoto Ito said goodbye and planned to turn around and leave. Suddenly, Naruto said, "Ito Makoto, why are you walking in such a hurry? Don't you want to see me so much?" "No, it's not Naruto-kun, you misunderstood, we are classmates, how could I not want to see you?" Makoto Ito tried to squeeze a smile on his face, but there was already contentment in his eyes. What is he trying to do? Why do I feel like I'm facing a majestic mountain, which makes people a little breathless? Naruto walked towards him slowly. Makoto Ito couldn't help but take 2 steps back. He was stared at by Naruto's sharp eyes, but he didn't dare to look at him. He did that kind of villainy thing yesterday, and he was already in his heart in a guilty conscience. At this time, the aura of a strong man exuding from Naruto's body also caused a fear that he had never had before in his heart. Who the hell is this guy? Why do I feel like my legs are weak just by being looked at like this? Naruto-kun. Ito Makoto couldn't help shedding a cold sweat on his head. Humph. Suddenly, Naruto snorted coldly, causing Makoto Ito to lean against the wall behind him, his back soaked with cold sweat. Naruto stepped forward step by step, came to him, and stared at him with clear blue eyes. "I said earlier, please don't have any illusions about Yanyi, it seems that you didn't listen at all." He punched the concrete wall beside Ito Makoto's ear with a bang, and the whole wall suddenly rang out. Couldn't help but tremble slightly, and a slight crack appeared on the wall. Makoto Ito's pupils shrank suddenly, and he almost fell to the ground in fright. The roar of the punch kept echoing in his ears. "Naruto, Naruto-kun, what are you doing?" Makoto Ito stammered, looking at him with fear in his eyes. "This guy is so scary. So scary. Is he going to hit himself? If you punch him in the face like this, you will definitely be killed, right?" Naruto stared at him and suddenly smiled. "What I hate most is the guy who is behind the scenes. You know what you did. I will spare you today. Yanyi is now my girlfriend. There is a limit to your patience. I'll give you a little punishment today." He suddenly stretched out his hand and patted it on Makoto Ito's shoulder. The only trace of chakra in his body quickly penetrated into Makoto Ito's body through the palm of his hand. When he turned around in his body, Makoto Ito only felt a slight pain between his legs, and then he went back again. Back to normal. He stared blankly at Naruto and turned to leave. When he reacted, his crotch was already wet. Was actually scared to pee. Ito Makoto looked around in a hurry, and found that everyone was eating at this time, and there was no one in the corridor, so he hurriedly left the place and ran to change his pants. After Naruto left, he came to the rooftop. A quiet figure in front leaned on the railing and looked at the distant scenery. His profile was as white as jade, and his long black hair was casually placed on his bulging chest. "Yanyi." Naruto stepped forward and greeted with a smile. "Naruto, you're here. I've been waiting for a while." Yanyi also smiled slightly, stretched out his hand and took out a beautiful bento to show in front of Naruto. "Very good, Yanyi." Naruto took the bento, opened it and sat down with Yanyi to taste it slowly. Seeing the happy and contented smile on Yanyi's face, Naruto immediately felt that his previous decision was correct. Using chakra to enter Ito Makoto's body stimulates the cells and meridians in his body, making it endocrine disorders, so that he cannot secrete sex hormones, that is to say, he will become inhumane. Although it is a bit cruel to do so, Naruto does not regret it. Ito Makoto has always liked Yanyi before, which is nothing, but when he and Yanyi confirmed the relationship between boyfriend and girlfriend, he still did not give up, and stayed on the sidelines. Bad fight, and even secretly planning to compete for words. Yanyi is not Naruto's private property, but Yanyi must not be hurt by the insidious uncertainty of Ito Makoto. Naruto can only be cruel, make him lose his function unconsciously, and kill this danger. In the cradle. This is the first time Naruto has taken the initiative to deal with another man for the sake of a woman, and it is also the first time that he has used such a sinister method. But this is also a way to protect Yanyi, even if it is not very bright. Because, being able to protect Yanyi's pure smile at this time in this way, what if the means were a little worse? He never fails to advertise himself as a messenger of light, he is just a ninja in the dark night, he will do whatever it takes to protect him. Hey, Naruto, are you free this weekend? I want to take my sister out for a shopping trip, and I'll introduce you to me by the way. Then, will I go to your house at night? Suddenly, Yanyi said with a slightly Yuhi expression on his face. Road. Naruto smiled and nodded when he heard the words. Okay, I have long wanted to meet your ghostly sister. By the way, teach her a good lesson for Yanyi, who has been bullied all the time. Ah, Naruto, my sister is still young and ignorant, so don't be too harsh. Yanyi said in shock. Haha, you're nervous, I'm joking. Seeing Yanyi's nervous look, Naruto couldn't help but reached out and pinched her nose. Naruto, it hurts. Yanyi broke away gently, threw his pink fist and slapped him lightly. Not far away, the world was silently looking at the two flirting with each other. The expression on her face became very complicated, and after a long time, she let out a faint sigh. At this moment, another crisp voice sounded behind her. World, do you like Naruto? Ah, Sha, you, why are you here? The world suddenly looked startled, and hurriedly turned around to look, only to see that Momo was standing behind him at some point, and those big brown eyes were staring at her unblinkingly. Chapter 422 Transfer. World, you are very strange these 2 days. In the past, you used to chat with Makoto Ito every time after class, but now you look at Naruto behind your back every day. We are good friends who have been together since childhood. How can you escape your worries? My eyes. Instant said lightly. The look on Shiji's face darkened slightly. In an instant, what do you think I should do now? Naruto's current girlfriend is Gue Yanye. Do you really want to get in? Shanna didn't answer the question. The world sighed slightly. I don't want to destroy their feelings. Then leave him and don't think about him again. Suddenly said. It's better to get rid of this pain earlier than to have a crush on him like now. But you still can't let go. Instant frowned. The world nodded slightly. I can't forget him anymore. I have fallen in love with him deeply. I can't extricate myself. Moment. Seeing the troubled and confused look on the world's face, he instantly shook his head, sighed helplessly, and left silently. The night before the weekend, Naruto was sitting at home silently cultivating the chakra in his body, but he had not made any progress for a long time, so he could only helplessly get up to drink water after practicing for a while. At this time, Naruto's cell phone rang suddenly, and Naruto opened it to see that it was Mommy who was calling. Connected. Naruto smiled and said, Mommy, are you coming back tomorrow? Naruto. However, Mammy's voice on the phone was no longer as relaxed and happy as before, and there seemed to be a hint of heaviness in her tone. What's wrong? Naruto frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. Naruto, I want you to transfer. Mommy said suddenly. Transfer. Why is that? Naruto couldn't help but be surprised. Why did Mommy want to transfer by herself for no reason? There must be some reason for this. Thinking of this, he quickly asked aloud. Unexpectedly, Mommy said something that surprised Naruto. Naruto, I'm so sorry, I accidentally let my parents find out. Mommy said quietly. Found? What did you find? Naruto was taken aback. The contraceptive pill in my bag, was seen by my mother yesterday. Under her pressure, I accidentally told me about you and me. I'm sorry Naruto. Mami's apologetic voice came from the microphone. Naruto was stunned. Mommy used to have sex with Naruto almost every time she came here before. Love, the two of them enjoyed it very much, they were very comfortable, they were happy every time, and Mommy never asked Naruto to wear a cover every time. She took the contraceptive pills after the incident, which caused her to carry the contraceptive pills in her bag. I didn't expect that it was because of this that she was accidentally discovered by Mami's mother. Knowing that Mommy has always been a virgin mother, she couldn't help but keep on ask. Mommy couldn't beat her mother, and in the end she could only tell her about Naruto and herself. After learning that her daughter was still in contact with the boy, Mami's mother was very angry and reprimanded her on the spot. But Mommy was determined to be with Naruto. No matter how much she tried to persuade her mother, it was useless to scold her for being unsatisfactory. In the end, with Mami's unswerving attitude, her family could only compromise. After all, her daughter's attitude was too tough, and they didn't want to push it too hard. In that case, it's better to just follow nature. However, under the secret investigation of Mami's family, it was found that Naruto actually had a girlfriend in Jinno Academy. Her parents immediately told Mommy about the incident. Mommy did not believe it after learning about it. Do not accept this reality. However, she still has Naruto in her heart. She knows that Naruto must still like her, so she did not directly ask Naruto about these things, but chose to use another method, which is now she is asking Naruto about things. Use transfer to test Naruto's love for him. If he agrees, it proves that he loves him even more. If he refuses, it proves that he really likes the girlfriend at school. Naruto, will you promise me? Mami's tone was trembling. She was longing for an answer. Naruto came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. Can you tell me why? Mommy, this is your parents' decision. No, it's my decision. Mommy said softly. Naruto touched his nose and felt a little conflicted in his heart. He deeply felt that Mommy was kind to him, but he was still a little reluctant to leave Jinno Academy now. Am I going to go to your place after the transfer? Naruto sighed. Well, I'll help you arrange it then. Naruto, I'm sorry, I know it's embarrassing for you, but I really can't help it. Mami's voice was full of struggles. You know what? My family has already found a marriage partner for me. If you can't get my family's approval, they will ask me to marry that person. I'm so scared. Naruto, come and accompany me. Mommy begged. Naruto frowned, and the next moment, he nodded heavily and promised, Mommy, I'll come right now. Where are you? Be sure to wait for me. I won't let you leave me, no one can stop. Really? Naruto. Mommy heard the words, her voice full of surprises. As expected, Naruto, you like me the most. Mommy is very happy. Naruto smiled slightly. Mommy, you're my woman, of course I like you. Wait for me, I'll be right over here. Naruto, you are so kind. After asking Mommy for the address, Naruto put on his clothes, ran out of the house, and went outside to take the tram to Bed Main City. However, just when he was about to get on the tram, a charming figure suddenly walked down from the tram, and Naruto was stunned when he saw it. Mommy. Looking at the beautiful woman in a police uniform in front of him, Naruto was completely at a loss. Aren't you in the bed city? Mommy had an apologetic smile on her face. Naruto, sorry, I couldn't help but come to you first. After finishing speaking, Mommy rushed towards Naruto's arms desperately. Naruto quickly grabbed her fragrant tender body, and said in a daze, Mommy, then what you said before was playing with me. No, what I said is true, it's just that I want to see you now. Mommy hugged his waist and said coquettishly, Naruto, I'm really happy. Chapter 423. See you. In the room, on the big white bed, Naruto pressed on Mami's delicate body. Her body was constantly moving, and large drops of perspiration continued to flow down Mami's face. Ah Naruto, Mommy can't do it anymore. She let out a burst of coquettish exclamations, gasping for fragrance, every inch of her body trembling with the tidal pleasure. After a long time, the clouds cleared and the rain dispersed. Mommy lay weakly on Naruto's chest, curled up in his arms like a cute kitten, her body still trembling. Naruto, you're about to kill me. Mommy gave him a charming look. Naruto smiled, kissed her and said, Mommy, you said you wanted me to transfer, what the hell is going on? Mammy's eyes flashed slightly, and she said, because our affairs were known to my parents, so this is what my parents meant. In fact, she panicked a little. It was not what her parents meant, but it was her own intention, a method that she deliberately won for herself and Naruto. Because if you don't do this, you can't be with Naruto, and sooner or later you will be married to someone else. Only by living with Naruto 1010 can your parents have nothing to say. This is already a sinking ship. Naruto frowned slightly and asked, where should I transfer to next? I've already contacted it. It's Fujimi College, which is not far from the city where I live. Mommy stretched out her pale jade fingers and drew circles on his chest. Fujime Academy. The environment of that school is much better than that of Jino Academy. There are various clubs, so you shouldn't be bored there. Mommy seems to have thought about everything for him. When will you turn around? Next semester. Mommy said with a smile, if you go to school there, you can 1010 come to the main city, then I can rent another house outside, and we can 1010 together. Okay, I promise you. Naruto gently stroked her soft hair and sighed secretly. That's great. Naruto. Mommy pressed Wei Yuhi's profile to his chest with a happy face. The next morning, Naruto woke up. Today is Saturday, and he promised Yanyi to let her come over, but with Mommy at home, this plan could only be aborted. However, just when Naruto hadn't woken up and was lying on the bed with Mommy, Yanyi called. Naruto glanced at Mommy who was asleep and answered the phone. Yanyi. Naruto, are you up yet? Yanyewe came from there with an excited voice. Naruto smiled bitterly. Not yet. Ah, did that disturb your rest? Yanyi's tone was slightly panicked. Naruto smiled. It's okay, I'm going to get up too. At this time, Mommy didn't know whether it was intentional or not. A jade leg suddenly straddled Naruto's waist, subconsciously rubbing against the high bulging thing below Naruto. Naruto's body moved. The lower part was already firm because of Chinbo, but being stimulated by her, it became even harder and swollen, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. What's wrong with Naruto? Yanyi asked strangely. It's nothing. Naruto responded hurriedly, wiping cold sweat on his face secretly. One hand quietly raised Mammy's jade leg, and carefully put her aside, but she didn't want Mommy to turn over at this moment. Suddenly the whole body all pressed against Naruto, and Naruto's firmness was just caught in front of the infinitely soft Taoyuan valley between Mammy's legs. Wrapped by two round and white thighs, Naruto almost moaned comfortably, groaning out, glaring at Mommy secretly. Seeing that she still seemed to be asleep, he couldn't help shaking his head helplessly. Hey, Naruto, hurry up, we made an appointment to go shopping together today. My sister Gui-shin can't wait. Yanyi smiled happily. Okay, Naruto agreed. Yeah, then it's settled. I'll wait for you at the commercial street in the city. After hanging up the phone, Naruto got up and got dressed. At this moment, Mommy, who had been pressing on Naruto, suddenly opened her big clear eyes and stared straight at Naruto. Naruto, are you going out? She said with a hint of resentment in her tone. Naruto smiled bitterly. Did you hear it just now? Mommy nodded slightly. Is she your girlfriend at the academy? She was silent for a while, and finally said quietly, are you going out with her? An embarrassed look appeared on Naruto's face, and then he finally nodded. Mommy, I think I should clarify some things with you. Actually, Suddenly, Mommy put her hand on his mouth, preventing him from continuing to speak, only to see her shaking her head gently. Naruto, don't say it. I can understand. A good person like you, no matter what I wouldn't be surprised if anything happened. Do you know? Naruto was stunned. Mommy giggled. Yes, Naruto, I really want to meet your girlfriend. I want to have a good talk with her. How's it going, Naruto? Naruto. Don't worry, I won't make you embarrassed. I just want to see her. Mommy said with a smile, and immediately got up and got dressed to wash up. Naruto had no choice but to comply with her request. After the two got up and washed up, they went out of the house together and went to the city center to find Yanyi. In fact, Naruto still felt a little inappropriate in his heart. Mommy and herself had already had a physical relationship, and the intimacy between the two was incomparable to Yanyi, but Yanyi was Naruto's nominal girlfriend. Although people haven't really done it, the relationship between them is also very good. Naruto also didn't want Mommy and Yanyi to have an unpleasant commotion when they found out their identities. At this time, in the center of Jinyei, Yanyi was standing quietly under the green light of Yuhi, waiting for Naruto to arrive, and beside her, a 12 or 13-year-old loli was looking around her excitedly. She looks 7 points similar to Yanyi, but compared to Yanyi, she looks more youthful, and her hair is not as long as her sister's, but she is cute, and she looks very lively. Shin, don't run around, be careful. Hey, I really shouldn't have brought you out. Seeing his sister walking around, looking around from time to time, Yanyi couldn't help sighing. Chapter 424 Make Things Difficult. Wow, sister, look, isn't that Naruto's brother? Huh, there's a beautiful sister next to him. Suddenly, Shin exclaimed, pointing at Naruto and Mommy who got off a bus not far away. Yanyi turned his head to look, and couldn't help but be stunned. In the coffee shop, under the soft and smooth music, the four Naruto sat opposite each other. Naruto and Mommy sat on the side, Yanyi and Shin sat on the side, and there was a cup of coffee on the table in front of the four of them. With a touch of heat. Brother Naruto, I have to tell you very seriously. What you are doing is wrong. Shin suddenly stood up and pointed at Naruto's nose. Shin, don't do this. Yanyi on the side hurriedly pulled her. Sister, don't be accustomed to him all the time. You see he can bring other women to date with you now. How can this be possible? Shin stubbornly retorted. Mommy, who was on the side, suddenly laughed softly. Little guy, it's not right for you to say that. Since your sister is dating Naruto, why are you here? Me, I'm my younger sister, so it's normal to take care of my elder sister. Humph. Oh, I'm Naruto's older sister. It's okay to be the gatekeeper for Naruto's younger brother, right? Mommy said with a wink at her. Naruto couldn't help but froze for a moment, looked at Mommy puzzled, and suddenly noticed that Mammy's hand was shaking his own under the table. Is that so? Naruto brother. Mommy turned to look at Naruto. Naruto came back to his senses and nodded slightly to express his acquiescence. Although he said that he was the 6th generation of Hokage, it was a little uncomfortable to be called a younger brother, but at this time, he had to follow Mammy's meaning. Is this true? Shin looked at Mommy and Naruto suspiciously. I don't believe you are siblings. How do you look alike? Ah, we are half-siblings. Mommy continued. Yanyi took her sister's arm. Okay. Heart, I met Miss Mommy for the first time today, how can you do this? Only then did Shin pouted and sat down steadily, but her eyes glared at Naruto and Mommy from time to time, looking very hostile. Brother Naruto. Shin suddenly called out to Naruto after a few people drank coffee for a while. What's wrong? Shin. I suddenly remembered that I have something to buy. Could you come with me? She said, standing up. That's fine. Okay, leave it to the two sisters, we'll be back soon. Shin pulled Naruto's big hand and ran out of the cafe. Only Yanyi and Mommy were left to stare at each other quietly. At this time, Shin, who was dragging Naruto out of the cafe, was dragging Naruto around aimlessly on the street. After being pulled by her for a few turns without a word, Naruto finally stopped and asked, Shin, what do you want to buy? Shin suddenly turned her head and looked up at him with an angry look on her face. brother Naruto. I didn't come out to buy things. Can't you see it? I was creating opportunities for two sisters. What? Quote. Naruto was stunned. HMPH, don't think I don't know. Brother Naruto, do you want to peddle two boats? I've already seen it. Guishin pointed at Naruto and said righteously, I put after you pay, the two of them will make it all clear. Then they will make a choice. Quote. It's really a little devil. After hearing Guishin's words, Naruto couldn't help but sighed while covering his forehead. Humph. Sure enough, the more handsome the boy is, the more attentive it is. Guishin snorted, looking at him with contempt. Naruto gave a helpless smile. Well, he really cares a lot. There have been many women in the Hokage world. In this world, mommy will never be the only woman, because he will not refuse a kind girl who likes him, and he can't bear it. It's just that in modern society, polygamy is not allowed, and Naruto's behavior has become a kind of alien and despised object in everyone's eyes. So, do you want me to leave your sister? Naruto said, looking at her. No, I want you to leave sister mommy. Guishin stared at him and said, once a person as stupid as elder sister falls in love with a boy, he will not change it again, so I will never change it. Allow her to be hurt for not being able to get you. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then smiled slightly. What an understanding sister. I'm so happy for Yanyi to have a sister like you. Humph. After being praised by Naruto, Guishin's face turned a little yuhi, but immediately snorted and ignored him. Hurry up and accompany me to the supermarket. She took Naruto's arm and took the lead into a supermarket. Naruto followed her. Wandering around the supermarket, Guishin seemed to be looking for something. The two came to a shelf. Naruto couldn't help but look embarrassed when Guishin suddenly ordered, Brother Naruto. Help me get that off. Naruto looked up and spread his hands involuntarily. Shin, you can't take this kind of thing yourself, why should I take it? I'm sorry. Guishin's face turned yuhi, and immediately urged, hurry up. Do you have to listen to me if you make a mistake? This girl is really too arrogant, right? Naruto smiled bitterly, and he reached out his hand to hit her on the head and give her a shudder, but seeing her cute appearance, he couldn't do it, not to mention that he was at a loss, so he had no choice but to do it. Reached out and took the soft package down. Guishin's face turned yuhi slightly, and then she showed a satisfied smile. Seeing her smiling smugly, Naruto suddenly lowered his body and leaned into her ear with a smile. I said Guishin, didn't your sister ask you to buy this package? Yeah, I bought it myself. What's the matter? Oh, so, Guishin is starting to grow up too. I will use this. Naruto smirked and glanced at her flat chest, a look of ridicule flashing in his eyes. I hate it. Big brother Naruto, how can you say that? Guishin's face turned pale immediately, stomping her feet fiercely, and punching Naruto with a fist. Naruto grabbed her little hand with a smile and shoved the bag back into her hand. If you say anything bad about me, I won't pay for you. You, damn it. Guishin's tender face rose to yuhi's. If it wasn't for my monarchy that night, I was afraid that my mother and sister would find out, but I didn't dare to buy sanitary pads by myself, so I wouldn't have asked Naruto to come over. I didn't expect him to be so bad. You keep making things difficult for yourself, damn it. Chapter 425. Let's open a room. The end. Naruto helped her go to the counter to pay the money. As the 6th generation of Hokage, this is the first time to buy sanitary pads for a girl. Naruto shook his head and smiled bitterly. Looking at Guishin's cute smile next to him, he already regarded her as a little devil with two small horns on his head. Okay, for the sake of seeing you helping me so much, I don't blame you. But I have to warn you. You can only treat my sister alone in the future, you know. At the time, Guishin turned back and said to him with a serious look. Naruto spread his hands undecided. Damn it, you foolish fellow. Seeing this, Guishin couldn't help but be very annoyed. I will definitely remind my sister. Stay away from you, Humph. When they returned to the cafe, Naruto found that Mami and Yanyi were still sitting opposite each other. When the two saw Naruto coming back, they couldn't help but smile at him. Naruto carefully looked at the expressions on their faces, but couldn't help it. See something. After sitting down, several people continued to taste coffee, chatted for a while, and then prepared to leave. When they left, Yanyi kept looking at Naruto's figure and hesitated. When the four of them went home separately, Yanyi couldn't say a word to Naruto, and the expression in his eyes was extremely struggling. Naruto was a little worried about her, and when he got home, he sent her a text message. Yanyi, what did Mommy tell you before? Are you all right? After a while, the text message came back. Brother Naruto, my sister cried so much that her eyes were swollen. What did she say to her sister? Naruto was stunned when he saw this text message. This is from Gui Shin. Is Yanyi crying? He has a big head. It seems that Mommy has already told everything about herself and her. Yanyi must be sad and disappointed with herself. He had the heart to ask Mommy, but he didn't know how to say it. Seeing Mommy busy preparing dinner at home, he couldn't blame her. Mommy returned to Bedlord City on Sunday. Naruto wanted to go to Yanyi's house to see her, but she never answered the phone. On Monday, Naruto saw Yanyi in the tram. On the tram, Naruto looked at her with her head lowered and looked lonely, and stepped forward to her side. Yanyi felt someone approaching, raised his head slightly, and saw Naruto's distressed look. His heart trembled greatly. Naruto, I heard about it. Suddenly, she said faintly, are you going to transfer? Naruto was stunned. Yesterday in the cafe, Mommy and Yanyi talked about Naruto, but she didn't talk about her special relationship with Naruto, only that Naruto was about to transfer to Fujimi College, which made Yanyi it was like a bolt from the blue, and it was unbelievable. She was very uneasy. After returning home, she hid in her room and cried for a long time. After being seen by her sister, she misunderstood Naruto and hurt her heart. She even replied to Naruto's past text messages. Yanyi sighed. Naruto, Sister Mommy told me that you are going to transfer to Fujimi College next semester. I don't know why you want to transfer, but I really miss you. When I think of you I'm so scared to leave, so scared. Yanyi, are you crying because of this? Naruto also sighed slightly. For Yanyi, she will definitely be hit hard when she leaves Jinyei Academy, but Mami's affairs cannot be ignored. After getting out of the car, Naruto gently held her in his arms and comforted her softly. Yanyi, you don't need to be unhappy. Even if I go to Fujimi College, I can still see you every week, and we can too. Call every day, and you can live together after you graduate in the future. Quote. I know all this, but when I think about leaving you soon, I feel very uncomfortable. I really want to transfer to Fujimi College with you, but my family doesn't agree. Yanyi leaned against him. On her chest, she began to cry softly again, dripping tears slowly dripping down her soft cheeks onto Naruto's clothes. Naruto stretched out his hand gently, lifted her chin that was smooth and tender, raised her pear blossom and rainy face, lowered his head and kissed it. Lips kissed her slightly swollen eyes, kissed her tear-stained face, kissed her soft lips that were trembling quietly. Naruto could only use this method to soothe the unease in her heart. Yanyi was gradually immersed in Naruto's tenderness. Although it was the first time he had such a close contact with Naruto, it was no longer important. Compared with the pain of Naruto about to leave him, his little resistance was nothing. What? Even if she devotes herself to Naruto immediately, she has no regrets. After the bitter kiss, the two stood in front of the station. Yanyi's face was full of red yuhi, and he whispered softly, Naruto, after school, let's open a room. Naruto was stunned when he heard the words. He thought he had heard it wrong, so he couldn't help but ask again, Yanyi, what did you say? Yanyi's face was full of embarrassment. Yuhi's heart was beating wildly, but she was too embarrassed to speak, covering her face and hurried to the school. Looking at her back as she ran away, Naruto couldn't calm down a bit. On this day, Yanyi was destined to be unable to concentrate on her studies, because she made a bold decision. In fact, she had already prepared herself mentally before, but due to various accidents, Naruto never went to her house. And this time, after getting the news that Naruto was going to transfer, she knew that she and Naruto Tenten had few chances to be together, but so far she has never given anything, and her precious body has not been taken by Naruto. Touched. So, this time, she decided to give her most precious things to Naruto. Even if Naruto transferred schools, they would still deeply remember the beauty of the past. She believes that even if a person as good as Naruto goes to a new academy and meets a new beautiful girl, as long as she has had that kind of relationship with him, she will still be her girlfriend. As long as Naruto doesn't abandon her, she will never give up. Finally, after school, Yanyi stood at the door of Naruto's classroom waiting for him as scheduled, but this time, they didn't just go home together. The two walked out of the gate of the campus holding hands. Yanyi was slightly excited. She was both looking forward to and afraid of what was to come, but she did not regret making this decision. At the gate of the school, Makoto Ito and Taisuke Ziyang looked at Naruto's slowly leaving figures, and the expressions on their faces were full of doubts. Chapter 426 Tail Line Conspiracy. In an ordinary hotel, Naruto and Yanyi walked into a dimly lit room under the ambiguous and envious gaze of the waiter. Naruto didn't feel anything, but Yanyi seemed a little nervous, and kept pulling Naruto's arm gently. When they entered the room, Yanyi saw that the room was well equipped, and there was even a box of condoms on the table. Immediately Yuhi looked ashamed. Ning, Naruto, are we going to open a room like this? Yanyi was sitting on the sofa in the room. There was only one double bed in the room. Seeing this big bed, Yanyi's heart pounded like a deer. What are you doing? Do you really want to do that kind of thing with Naruto? She was a little scared in her heart, but she was looking forward to it. Doing that kind of thing with Naruto would definitely be very comfortable, right? And since then, she is Naruto's woman. Thinking of this, Yanyi was no longer afraid, but looked forward to it even more, and there was a faint feeling of excitement in his heart. Under the dim light, Naruto poured 2 glasses of water and handed it to Yanyi, saying, Yanyi, are you really ready? Don't you regret it? Yanyi put down the water glass, looked at Naruto seriously and said, well, I have made a decision. I want to be one with you. In this case, even if we are separated in the future, I will never forget it. We were together. Looking at Yanyi's serious decision, Naruto felt that this was a bit inappropriate. It wasn't because he was in a hurry, but because Yanyi was in a hurry. Could she just be impulsive? Will you regret it after doing it? Naruto didn't want her to feel sorry in her heart, and she didn't want the two to finish those things in such a hurry. With a slight sigh, Naruto suddenly lost his interest. Yanyi's body can indeed give men a desire to conquer, but this does not mean that he is the same. He has seen too many women. If every time if a girl wants to conquer, if she wants to have a physical relationship with them, wouldn't she become a beast of desire and desire? Naruto, what's wrong with you? Yanyi noticed Naruto's strangeness and couldn't help asking. No, it's nothing. Naruto shook his head and smiled at her. Yanyi, let's watch TV first. Yeah, Yanyi nodded lightly. Yian turned on the TV, then came back and sat on the edge of the bed, with a pair of jade arms around Naruto's waist, his head resting on his shoulder, his face slightly Yuhi, his eyes flickered, looking both nervous and expectant. While the two were adjusting the atmosphere, 2 sneaky figures suddenly appeared in the corridor outside. It is Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga. Before the two of them saw Yanyi and Naruto at the school gate not taking the tram home after school, but leaving in the direction of the city, they were very curious, so they secretly followed, and happened to see 2 people. People entered the hotel. The two were immediately shocked, and finally understood the intentions of Naruto and Yanyi. They actually went to open a house. What is the purpose of not going home after school and coming to the city to open a house? As long as people who are not in the dark will understand, and young men like Ito Makoto and Ziyang Taisuke who have read countless H books and H movies, they are very sensitive to this kind of thing. Their hearts were broken at that time, especially Makoto Ito, the lover of his dreams, the object of his longing, not only did not leave Naruto, he even went in to open a room with him. I said sincerity, you can't read it wrong, right? Are you sure they are on this floor? Zeong Taisuke asked dubiously when the two came to the third floor, which is where Naruto and Yanyi's rooms were located. Road. Yeah, I'm definitely not mistaken. Ito Makoto frowned, with anxious sweat on his face, anxious and panic in his heart. Taisuke, do you think they have started now? When I think of my words I can't stand being like Naruto. Zeong Taisuke sighed. It's useless, they have entered the room now, even if we know they can't do anything in the room. Ito Makoto bit Kiba. No, I will never let Yanyi do that kind of thing with him. Even if he does, it's the right thing to do with me. Okay, since you are so determined, why don't we just do it a little bit more? Zeong Taisuke suddenly said when he saw his determined look. Huh, what did you say? Makoto Ito was slightly surprised. Taisuke Zeong let out a low laugh, and whispered a few words in Makoto Ito's ear. Makoto Ito immediately turned pale when he heard it. I'm afraid it's not good to do this. You can't handle that much now. You have to know that if you don't do this, Yanyi will be ruined by Naruto. A look of struggle flashed across Ito Makoto's face. Finally, he bit Kiba hard and nodded, okay. I'll listen to you. Hey, but, I have one more condition. Honesty, Taisuke Zeong said with a smile, we're on the same boat now. I think I have a share in this kind of thing, right? Ah, this, Taisuke, you. Makoto Ito looked at him in disbelief. How is it? Promise. I've been making suggestions for you for so long. As a friend, can't you meet me even this request? Then you're going too far. But, how can Yanyi's body be touched by you? It should be only me. Ito Makoto shouted. Chang, haven't you figured it out yet? When the plan is successful, we won't be able to go back. Yanyi will never like you. Instead, let's do the kind of thing in the comics. Thoroughly let Yanyi become our plaything. Excited. Taisuke Zeong laughed, and Makoto Ito swallowed quietly, feeling excited for some reason. In the room, Naruto and Yanyi hugged each other, and there was a boring love drama on TV, but Yanyi watched it with relish. She looked up at Naruto from time to time, as if she had completely substituted herself into it. At this moment, there was a knock on the door of the room. Both of them were slightly taken aback, and when they came back to their senses, Yanyi hurried forward to open the door. When the door opened, it was a waiter wearing a peaked cap. He was holding a plate of juice drinks and motioned to Yanyi to take 2 glasses. After Yanyi was stunned for a while, he picked up 2 glasses of orange juice and said thank you. Naruto suddenly glanced at the waiter, and when he saw his slightly lowered head, a playful smile flashed across his face. After closing the door, Yanyi returned to Naruto with the juice, and said with a smile, the service in this hotel is still very good, Naruto, there are still people delivering drinks. It's not bad, there may be other programs to send later. Naruto took the juice and smiled lightly. Chapter 427 Punishment for Seeing Through. Outside the door, after the waiter walked out, he came to a corner, and Taisuke Zeong jumped out to stop him. How is it, Chang, has the item been delivered? He asked hastily. It turned out that this waiter was pretending to be Makoto Ito. At this time, there was still nervous sweat on his face. You must know that if this kind of thing is discovered, he will definitely be killed by the powerful Naruto. Fortunately, Naruto didn't seem to find him, which made the two of them's plan half successful, and then, all that was left was to wait. When the drug in the juice broke out, they would be able to knock on the door and go in. At that time. Hey, thinking of what was going to happen next, the two looked at each other and laughed excitedly. The two resisted their excitement and waited in the corridor for a while before quietly approaching the door of Naruto and Yanyi's room, and put their ears on the door and listened carefully. There's no sound inside. The medicine is working, Makoto Ito exclaimed excitedly. Taisuke Zeyoung immediately took out an iron wire and inserted it into the shrinkage hole. After a few gentle stirrings, the door lock was opened with a click. "Wow, that's amazing," Makoto Ito exclaimed in surprise. Zeyoung smiled proudly, and the two opened the door and entered the room. The room was dimly lit, and I saw Naruto and Yanyi snuggling on the bed, without taking off their clothes, and there were 2 half-drinking glasses of juice on the table next to them. Seeing this, Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeyoung immediately closed the door again. In the dimness, the two looked at each other, their faces full of lust and hopeful smiles. Naruto is really lucky. A girl as beautiful as Yanyi is willing to open a room with him. It's abominable. Makoto Ito stared at Naruto resentfully with his fists squeezed, and then his eyes on Yanyi again, muttering to the two people walked over. Taisuke Zeyoung smiled. "Don't worry. Sincerely, it's better for us to deal with this guy Naruto first. If he suddenly wakes up later, it will be bad." "Well, that's what I said. After all, the two of us might yell at Yanyi later." "Ha ha ha." Makoto Ito nodded with an excited smile on his face. So the two took another rope, looked at each other, and reached out to Naruto excitedly. "Hey, tell you this guy to be in the limelight. Tell you to snatch my words." Makoto Ito murmured while cursing as he stretched out his hand to Naruto. At this moment, the corner of Naruto's mouth, who had been lying on the bed, suddenly pulled out a sarcastic arc. Makoto Ito stared at Yanyi with integrity, but he didn't notice Naruto's raised corner of his mouth at all. Just as his hand was about to pull the Yanyi in Naruto's arms, Naruto's eyes suddenly opened. There seemed to be a flash of light, and in the next instant, Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga immediately felt an incomparably heavy aura envelop them both. "Naruto, why are you awake?" Ito Makoto suddenly saw Naruto's teasing blue eyes with anger, his face turned pale with fright, and his body fell backward. He fell to the ground with a bang, staring at Naruto in despair, as if seeing a ghost. Zeyoung Taisuke wasn't much better, but his heart was ruthless. He suddenly picked up a chair next to him, and slammed it towards Naruto who had not yet sat up. At this time, Yanyi, who had just opened his eyes, was startled by this sudden scene, and screamed in his mouth. The next moment, the chair stopped in midair, because the other end was already firmly grasped by a strong palm. I saw Naruto holding the chair in one hand, and pulling Yanyi with the other hand behind him, got up and sneered, "You two are very good. This juice is delicious. Why didn't you fall into a coma? That's impossible. You guys have already drank the juice." Taisuke Zeyoung struggled hard, but the chair in his hand seemed to be bitten by iron tongs, and he couldn't get it back at all. "Hey, that's so naive. Do you think your little tricks can fool me? It's too childish." Naruto exerted a little force on his hand, only to hear a crackling sound, and the corner of the chair was directly snapped by him. And then stretched out his arm. The moment the chair just landed, he had already grabbed Taisuke Zeyoung's collar. He was dragged over fiercely, and Naruto stared at him coldly. "Poor guy. I didn't want to deal with you, but you yourself challenged my bottom line again and again. This time, I must kill the danger in the cradle. Although you still pose no threat to me." Naruto, you misunderstood. We are not. There is no malice, we are just. Taisuke Zeyoung was grabbed by Naruto. His legs and feet went weak with fright, because Naruto's strength was too great. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break free, and the feeling of being slaughtered made him tremble. At this time, Yanyi, who had been standing behind Naruto watching all this, also stood up and shouted angrily at Taisuke Zeyoung and Makoto Ito, "You two scumbags. Naruto and I did such an outrageous thing. I'm going to call the police." Naruto waved his hand to stop Yanyi's angry scolding, and said lightly, "Don't call the police first. These two guys will be handed over to me to punish." After speaking, Naruto glanced at Makoto Ito, who had fallen on the ground and was dumbfounded, and a wicked smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, he let go of Taisuke Zeyoung's body, and at the moment when the other party was puzzled, his hands instantly hand-seal, and an invisible spiritual force rushed over. Ziyang Taisuke was immediately shocked, and his eyes couldn't help but stay. Suddenly, he turned around and picked up Makoto Ito, who was slumped on the ground, and then punched him fiercely, cursing, "Bastard! You asked me to do all of this, damn it! I won't listen to you anymore. I'm going to beat you to death." With a bang, Makoto Ito was severely punched in the face, and fell to the ground again with a look of shock on his face. "Taisuke, what are you doing? Ah, it hurts." Makoto Ito fell to the ground weakly, raised his head, and his face was full of disbelief. Naruto smiled slightly, pulled Yanyi and said lightly, "It seems that they have something to solve before, I think we should leave here first." Yanyi was stunned. "Naruto, didn't you teach them a lesson? Then let's call the police." "Okay, then call the police." Naruto smiled, took out his mobile phone, and pressed the alarm number. Chapter 428 Makoto Ito is blown away. After calling the police, Yanyi breathed a sigh of relief. "I really didn't expect that they are such people. Naruto, what should I do in the future? I'm a little scared to go to the same school with such people." Yanyi sighed softly, holding Naruto's arm in his arms. "Ken, let go." Naruto sneered. "Yanyi, don't be afraid. I can guarantee that they will never have the opportunity to harass you again in the future." "Really, Naruto?" "Hey, lie to you, I'm a puppy." Naruto gently scratched her nose. At this time, in the inn, after Taisuke Sawayong had beaten Ito Makoto, his face suddenly turned Yuhi. He was panting heavily, and he pulled Makoto Ito, who had a bruised nose and a swollen face, and threw him on the bed. Then abruptly tore off his clothes, took off his trousers, raised the firm thing under his crotch, and sneered at Makoto Ito. "Ah, hey, you, what are you doing?" Ito Makoto vaguely felt something hard against his ass. He. "Makoto, hurry up and give it to me." Taisuke Ziyang ripped open Makoto Ito's pants viciously, pointed his gun at Makoto Ito's heart and stabbed it. Ah. The next day, there was only one person in the world in front of Naruto. Makoto Ito hadn't come to class yet. Besides him, Taisuke Ziyang, who was with him yesterday, didn't come to class either. The head teacher suddenly ran into the classroom angrily and shouted, "Where are Makoto Ito and Taisuke Ziyang? Come out for me." The students all looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. The world turned around curiously and asked Naruto, "Naruto-kun, what's wrong with the head teacher? Why does he seem so angry? Did he have anything to do with them?" Naruto spread his hands and shook his head to show he didn't know. Of course he knew it all. Last night, Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga tried to use the drug to stun themselves and Yanyi, and they attacked Yanyi. Fortunately, Naruto saw through the waiter who Makoto Ito was pretending to be, and after discussing with Yanyi, he pretended to fall asleep. Lure the enemy into taking the bait. This was the scene where Makoto Ito and Taisuke Ziyang entered the door and planned to attack Yanyi. However, those drugs had no effect on Naruto at all. Naruto took it into consideration and successfully tore apart the inside of the two of them. Humanity of beasts. After that, Naruto used the only trace of chakra to use a small deceptive demonic illusion on Taisuke Ziyang. Although chakra was insufficient at the time, and Naruto was not good at demonic illusion, but in the Hokage world, as the 6th generation of Hokage, he can be regarded as a well-read, although various ninjutsu are not necessarily grandmasters, but some superficial techniques can be understood at once, and he can easily use a small demonic illusion against ordinary people like Taisuke Ziyang, and the effect is even more powerful than the most powerful hypnotist in the world. Under this demonic illusion, Naruto successfully made Taisuke Sawanaga carry out atrocities against Makoto Ito for more than an hour. Although Naruto and Yanyi left early, he could also imagine what would happen next. Makoto Ito was no match for Taisuke Ziyang at all. He was directly penetrated under his tall body. This vicious scene was not stopped until the police entered the room. This matter was immediately reported on the Hayama News this morning, and the head teacher just saw the news in his office, and immediately became furious after recognizing that the two guys were students in his class. This is the scene of entering the classroom and questioning angrily. However, the head teacher who could not get an answer could only leave angrily, planning to call the parents of the two. How strange, the world muttered. Naruto smiled slightly. Why didn't you make a phone call and ask? He couldn't help but look forward to what Ito-kun would say now. HMPH, I don't want to contact this kind of person anymore. The world snorted softly. Last time he secretly informed Yanyi, the bastard who did this kind of thing, I have already deleted his call. Ah, that's fine. Hey, Naruto, do you want to eat lunch with classmate Yanyi at noon? The world suddenly asked in a low voice. What's wrong? If there is no accident, it should be. Naruto smiled slightly. Oh, that's it. The world lowered his head with a look of disappointment on his face, and suddenly raised his head expectantly and asked, then Naruto-kun, are you free when you are studying Matsuri? Can you dance with me? Academy Matsuri. Dancing. Yeah, Academy Matsuri will be in a few days. Has Naruto-kun figured out what to do then? If not, please dance with me, said the world giggling. Naruto's face could not help dripping a drop of cold sweat. He was not interested in dancing or anything, but when the world invited him, he was too embarrassed to refuse, not to mention that it was just a dance, it was just a small thing for him. Thinking of this, Naruto nodded and agreed to her. Really, Naruto-kun, did you agree? Seeing him nodding, the world immediately showed an overjoyed expression and cheered, yeah. Great, Naruto-kun. Naruto is secretly strange, isn't it just dancing? Why does she look so excited? Shaking his head, Naruto no longer thought about it. After school, Yanyi and Naruto both left the classroom. The world was also about to leave the classroom. At this moment, a petite figure suddenly walked up to her and said lightly, "World, you have gone astray now." Huh, what did you say, Momo? The world turned to look at her suspiciously. HMPH, don't think I don't know, I already knew when you invited Naruto to dance before. World, I told you not to get caught up in it, but you're still like this. She said with a frown. The world was stunned when she heard the words, and then she sighed slightly, with a gloomy expression on her face. In an instant, you don't understand, it's hard to extricate yourself when you like someone. Who said I didn't understand? Shanna hummed. Huh, do you also have someone you like? The world was slightly surprised. Instantly said lightly, I used to like it, but now I am lost because he is not as good as before. Who is it? Who do you like? Instantly sighed slightly. Don't talk about me, I won't like him anymore from now on, because what he did is really unacceptable. The world was stunned for a moment, and at this moment, someone next to him suddenly heard some small voices of discussion. Chapter 429 Academy Matsuri. Have you heard? Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeong from our class didn't come today. It seems that something happened. Ah, what's the matter? Are you sick? Another asked. No, I just happened to hear the head teacher calling their parents when I was passing by the office. I heard that the two of them had a room in a hotel at night, and they went to each other, SBL things. Later, I don't know why they were arrested by the police. Live. Quote. No way. How is this possible? Is it too exaggerated? I couldn't believe it too, but it really came from the head teacher, and it was broadcast on Hayama News. No way. If I knew I had secretly watched the Hayama News. It's a pity, I miss this kind of thing. Che, I regret hearing such a disgusting thing. I really didn't expect such a good boy as Makoto Ito to do such a thing. I saw that Taisuke Zeong looked pretty good, but I usually see them staying together a lot, so it turns out that there is such a relationship between them. I'm so disgusted, I might have no appetite for dinner tonight. Hey, let's not talk about it, let's talk about other things. The two voices gradually faded away, and the world suddenly came back to its senses, looking at Moan in disbelief. Seeing the helpless and sad look on her face, she seemed to understand something. Ito Makoto is becoming more and more outrageous now. I also liked him very much before. I didn't expect him to become like this. Fortunately, I have seen him clearly now and found someone I really like. The world sighed, slightly breathed. For a moment, he was stunned. For a moment, looking at the happy and distressed look on the world's face, he couldn't help but be very curious. What's so good about that Naruto guy? To make the world care so much, even knowing that he already has a girlfriend like Wei Yanye, he can still love him regardless of everything. Matsuri Academy, the school was very lively. The students were busy arranging classrooms and activity venues. Naruto was lazy and didn't want to work, so he went to the rooftop in a daze. Originally, he wanted to come and chat with Yanyi, but unexpectedly, Yanyi was also assigned the task of setting up the event venue by the teacher, and he couldn't leave for a while. The world, they are the same in the instant. As active members of the class, they couldn't get away from it when setting up the Academy Matsuri. Only Naruto was in a panic, and he was bored watching the scenery on the rooftop. Because the Academy Matsuri was officially held in the evening, everyone started the arrangement in the afternoon, and the official start had to wait until the evening came, so Naruto, who had nothing to do, watched the scenery on the rooftop for a while, and then left the rooftop to go shopping for other parts of the school place. At this time, Yanyi was not by Naruto's side because she had to prepare for Matsuri in the academy. However, with her own strength, she couldn't complete her task at all. She wanted other classmates to do things with her, but every time in the past, these classmates looked at her with repelling eyes, which made her feel very distressed and did not understand what she had done wrong and why every classmate in the class bullied her like that. Especially Kato Otome. Since she was humiliated with the help of Naruto last time, she hated Yanyi even more, but she still did not give up the idea of pursuing Naruto, but she was popular in the class. Although she no longer dared to bully Yanyi, she was able to mobilize other classmates to reject her collectively, isolate her, and repay what happened last time in this way. It's just that Naruto didn't know all this, and Yanyi never talked to him. At this time, when Yanyi was alone and didn't know what to do, Naruto, who was wandering all the way, came to her place. Around. Naruto, why are you here? You don't have to help with the arrangement in your own class. Yanyi's face smiled slightly, and she immediately stood up and ran towards him, who was at a loss in her seat. Naruto looked around and found that everyone else in the classroom was gathered around, discussing, chatting, busy, but Yanyi was a vacuum. No one cared about it. He couldn't help but wrinkle slightly, frowning. He looked down at Yanyi and asked, Yanyi, have you encountered any difficulties? No, Naruto, I'm fine. Yanyi panicked a little and hurriedly replied. Naruto looked at her for a while, and suddenly smiled slightly. Yanyi, why don't I help you? What are you going to arrange in this classroom? Naruto, this is not good. You are a classmate of the third class. Should you go to set up the third class venue? Yanyi couldn't help saying. Naruto couldn't help laughing dumbly. Who ruled this? Yanyi is wrong for you to think so. He reached out and scratched Yanyi's little Chong's nose, and his intimacy immediately attracted the envy of a group of people around him. Look. The girls are jealous that Yanyi can get the love of such a good boy as Naruto, while the boys are jealous that Naruto can conquer such a conservative and beautiful schoolgirl as Yanyi. Compared with the others, the two of Naruto seemed a little out of tune. However, these Naruto didn't care, and after teasing with Yanyi for a while, they began to help Yanyi set up the scene. Because of being forcibly humiliated by Naruto last time, Kato Otome and her several female companions are a little afraid of Naruto, but Otome can't control her love for Naruto, and her eyes always fall on him from time to time. At this time, Yanyi asked Naruto to help him go to the equipment room to get something, and Naruto responded and left their classroom. Kato Otome suddenly left the other side of the classroom, and followed Naruto all the way to the equipment room. As soon as Naruto entered, he was about to leave after taking his things, when the door to the equipment room behind him was suddenly closed. The next moment, a soft tender body instantly hugged him fiercely from behind. "What are you doing?" Naruto said lightly. He had long known that Otome was secretly following behind him. If she didn't have any murderous intent when she rushed forward, Naruto would have turned around and punched him. Even so, Naruto was a little surprised and complicated when he was hugged by Otome from behind. He had humiliated her like this last time, why didn't she give up? Turning around, Naruto gently pushed her, only to find that she was hugging him tightly, stubbornly not wanting to let go. "Otome, what are you doing?" Naruto frowned slightly. To be honest, because of the last time she bullied Yanyi, he didn't like her much, and even hated her, but on second thought, Otome bullied Yanyi, no, is it because you like yourself? Chapter 430 Bold Temptation. "No, I won't let it go." Otome hugged him tightly, her head resting on his chest, her eyes closed tightly and motionless. Naruto shook his head helplessly. "Hey, aren't you afraid that I'll get angry if you act like a scoundrel?" "Don't be afraid. No matter what you do to me, I won't let go this time. When I finally have such an opportunity, I will never let you go away from me." Otome suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and raised her head. Staring at Naruto. "Naruto-kun, can you accept me? I really like you. You'd better let it go first." Naruto pushed her. But she saw tears suddenly welled up in her eyes, and she even started to cry. "Naruto-kun, do you really hate me so much? Do you really want to be close to me so much? Am I really that bad?" Woo, it's not fair, it's not fair. Yanyi can like you, why can't I? This is different. When she cried, Naruto really didn't know what to do, so she had to let her hug him, his face full of helplessness. Suddenly, Otome pushed Naruto to the corner of the wall with force, and the two suddenly leaned against the wall. Naruto was stunned, but saw Otome suddenly let Naruto go, and she pressed her body firmly on his chest. "Naruto-kun, I'll prove it to you, I'm no worse than Yanyi." Looking at her firm eyes, Naruto sighed slightly, and at this moment, Otome suddenly stretched out her hand and pulled open the collar of her chest, unbuttoning the buttons of the school uniform on her chest at once. Immediately, the two fronts wearing pure white hoods jumped out and appeared in front of Naruto at once. "Hey, what are you doing?" Naruto jumped. His chest was tightly pressed by Otome, and a fresh fragrance of a girl came, and the two firm and plump white rabbits in sight were surrounded by the white cover covered it, but its round and straight appearance was still visible at once. Otome's boobs are pretty good too. Although it's not as big as Yanyi's big breasts, it's also very firm and cute. It's just that Naruto is only a little excited, he can still control himself, and he won't be tempted by such a woman that he doesn't like at present. She stretched out her hands and held her round and smooth shoulders. Just when Otome thought Naruto was tempted to do something to her, Naruto pushed her away with a calm expression. "Naruto-kun." Otome couldn't help but froze for a while. Naruto smiled lightly. "Someone is coming, you should put on your clothes first." Otome couldn't help but stunned. The next moment, she only felt that her body lightened slightly, and the person was already held by Naruto and came to the back of a large cabinet. At this moment, the door of the equipment room was also opened, and a student with equipment walked in. Neither of Naruto knew each other. Otome held her breath and pressed it into Naruto's arms. Suddenly, a sly look flashed in her eyes, and she opened her mouth slightly. Just as she was about to shout, Naruto grabbed Cherry's small mouth. "What do you want to do?" Naruto whispered, frowning at her. Otome whimpered, looking at him with a look of surprise, and then her beautiful eyes showed a smile again. The next moment, Naruto's body could not help but tremble. He stared at her sternly, his other hand quickly clenched down, and pinched Otome's little hand that was making trouble. However, because Otome's actions were too sudden, Naruto really didn't expect her to do such a bold act. He even stretched that soft jade hand directly into Naruto's crotch and grabbed his big bird at once. Naruto wanted to pull her hand out, but Otome held onto Naruto's big bird and held onto it. Quote. Let go, Naruto whispered. I don't. Otome broke away from Naruto's palm, raised a tender Yuhi face, and replied stubbornly. One hand was still gently pinching on Naruto's big bird, and said with a smile, Naruto-kun, you are so big. Quote. Hee, it's getting bigger. It's so hard. You have a reaction. Otome stared at Naruto with a wicked smile. Now, she seems to have caught Naruto's handle, with a proud face on Yuhi's face. Naruto was speechless. He was caught by the soft and smooth jade hand, and he was still being trolled. How could he bear that feeling? He really doesn't have such a strong will. At this time, the student who came in to get the equipment hadn't left. He was turning around in the equipment room and suddenly came to the front of the cabinet where Naruto and the two were hiding. Even Naruto had to hold his breath at this time. After all, if this kind of thing were discovered, no matter how thick his skin was, he would be embarrassed. However, when Otome saw Naruto's body motionless at this time, a sly smile flashed in her eyes, and the little hand that made trouble slid harder on Naruto's big bird, causing Naruto to swell up uncomfortably. Moreover, not only that, Otome also stood on tiptoe slightly, raised her head and put her soft lips on Naruto's mouth and kept licking, like a kitten that pleases her master, sticking out her soft tongue constantly. Sucking on Naruto's mouth, at the same time, she also made full use of her open chest, rubbing up and down Naruto's chest. I can't stand it. Damn little leprechaun. Naruto felt that he was about to reach the bottom line of persistence. If he had Hiraition's technique now, he would definitely bring her to his home in an instant and give her a slap in the face. Finally, the student finished taking the equipment and left. When the door was closed, Naruto lifted her and pressed her hard against a small table next to her. Ah, Otome whispered softly. She was facing the sky, and suddenly she felt a body pressing down on her body, and a pair of big hands firmly pressed her hands to both sides. Naruto gasped slightly and called out, Otome, you're playing with fire, do you know that? After Otome was shocked, she saw Naruto's slightly hairy face with Yuhi, and the astonishing bulge under her body. She couldn't help giggling. This is the best, but I'm afraid you won't dare. Naruto frowned. He clearly knew in his heart that the goblin was provoking him, and he didn't know whether he was more angry or lustful and hopeful at this time. There was only an urge in his heart to punish her well. Do you really think I don't dare? Naruto ruthlessly lifted her short skirt, revealing the white little inner, then reached out and grabbed it, pressing it between her legs. Incredibly soft place. Chapter 431 Stubborn Otome. What? Yuhi dizziness appeared on Otome's beautiful face. Well, Naruto-kun, you made me feel so uncomfortable. She said uncomfortable, and she didn't know what she meant. Anyway, Naruto doesn't care. He thinks Otome is self-inflicted, who let her tease him so enthusiastically first. Naruto thought to himself, don't think of yourself as a righteous person, Kunzi. In front of desire and hope, no matter how big the reason will be drowned. Although the current situation Naruto can still control. However, just when he thought of this idea, Otome's face suddenly showed a coquettish look. Her pair of soft jade arms suddenly wrapped around Naruto's neck, which was originally caught after Naruto's surprise attack. The tight legs also immediately and actively opened, which seemed to make it easier for Naruto to touch her. Naruto-kun, are you going to transform into a beast? Otome spit out the fragrant aroma at him with a smile, and the fingers on his neck gently tugged at the back of his neck, teasing. You. Naruto's eyes widened, his face full of disbelief. How could this girl do this? A virgin shouldn't have such a reaction. However, Naruto really miscalculated this time. He wanted to scare her and make her run away. It seems that he underestimated the ability of others. What's the matter? Naruto-kun, I'm looking forward to it. Otome winked at him, put her soft lips to his ear, and said softly and seductively, I'm a virgin. Naruto's big hand between her legs trembled slightly. This is the manifestation of his sanity and desire struggling. However, with the slight trembling of his hand, It touched the extremely sensitive nerves under the otome, and a little strange feeling suddenly made her unable to help her lightly, groaned, and moved her body slightly, his body suddenly leaned towards Naruto's hand. Huh. Naruto gasped, this is really unbearable. This seems to be self-inflicted. He thought helplessly. At this moment, Otome's jade hand suddenly slid down from Naruto's neck along his strong chest. It gave Naruto a strange feeling of itchiness along the way. Why don't you move? Otome reached out and gently grasped the huge object under Naruto, opened the zipper, and pulled it out directly. The huge size and the warmth made her cry softly, but immediately, she laughed lowly, it's getting bigger again. I'm really jealous of Yan Yi, she must be very happy, right? Seeing that she didn't act like a virgin at all, Naruto couldn't help but be speechless. She must be lying to herself, so bold, so unrestrained, a virgin wouldn't have it, right? Are you really a virgin? He finally asked. Her face Yuhi, are you doubting me? Am I a virgin? Can you try it? After she finished speaking, she closed her beautiful eyes and bit her slightly, waiting for Naruto's attack. However, Otome waited for a long time, but still did not wait for the thing that she was looking forward to and feared in her heart. She couldn't help opening her beautiful eyes and asked, it's all like this, why are you hesitating? Naruto sighed slightly, whether you are a virgin or not, I have no feelings for you. Why do you have to do this? Otome couldn't help being stunned when she heard this, and then her face showed anger, and she snorted softly, you are wrong. If you didn't feel for me, would you become so hard? This is clearly escaping. You are not at all, I just don't want to face my feelings. Naruto cried out in his heart that he was wronged, no matter who it was. A beautiful woman grabbed his life and tricked him, and then offered all kinds of temptations and verbal stimulation. If he didn't get tough, he would be a eunuch. However, because of the things that Yan Yi was bullied by her, Naruto's impression of her was always a bit flawed. He couldn't see the bullying thing the most. When Yan Yi was bullied, he was really kind of ruthless. The urge to slap the otome twice. Therefore, although he is now seduced by her, he is still struggling in his mind. At this moment, a few figures suddenly approached outside the equipment room. Naruto frowned, Otome also trembled, but immediately she smiled and glared at Naruto and said, Naruto-kun, if I am not satisfied with what I do, I will call. Look, there are people passing by over there. If I call out, I don't know how everyone will feel. Quote. Hey, are you too mean? Naruto stared at her angrily. I dare to do anything for the person I like. Otome stubbornly glared at him. Looking at the unwavering gaze in her eyes, Naruto's heart was suddenly touched. A girl, or a virgin, to this point, how much determination did she make in her heart? How passionate are you? Thinking about it, Naruto thinks that he is really too indifferent to her. Otome, Naruto suddenly called her. Huh. Are you ready? It hurts. Naruto suddenly opened her insides, straightened her body, and entered deeply. Otome opened her sandalwood mouth slightly, and almost didn't inhale it in one breath. The tingling feeling and the thrill of being suddenly enriched made her suffocate for a moment. Come in. Come in. After whispering, Otome looked at him in surprise, joy and shame, with a complicated expression on her face. Naruto smiled. Yeah, this is what you asked me to do. A trace of fresh blood ran down Otome's tender and white big legs slowly, mixed with that sticky love-and liquid, dripping onto the ground in the equipment room. Naruto couldn't help but groan and groaned, so tight, so slippery. She really is a virgin. Yuhi on Otome's face, her soft lips biting slightly, and her frowning eyebrows, Naruto opened his mouth and kissed it. Outside the equipment room, a few boys walked past the door giggling, but they didn't know that the things they dreamed were already happening inside. On the other side, Yan Yi, who sat on her seat and waited for a long time, didn't wait for Naruto to come back. She couldn't help feeling a little strange. She turned on her phone and sent him a short message. Naruto, are you ready? Why is it taking so long? Is there something wrong? I have to say that Yan Yi's hunch was very accurate, because Naruto was on Otome at this time. Chapter 432 Conquered. Naruto-kun, I can't do it anymore. Otome held Naruto's chest tightly with a pair of jade arms. Her head shook like a rattle, and her face was full of Yuhi's color. The table in the equipment room was also rattled. Under the impact of Naruto's rapid wave, Otome felt an unprecedented pleasure. She had almost forgotten herself, and was completely immersed in this boundless happiness. Naruto was galloping constantly, and the ashes that had been seduced by Otome before finally burst out at this moment, fast, lasting, and strong. Make Otome want to die. Almost got pissed off. Finally, after a high-pitched long chant, Otome's delicate body, which was full of roses, fell into Naruto's arms weakly, and her jade arm, which had no strength at all, was gently placed on Naruto's shoulder, and the mouth breathed quickly. But at this time, Naruto continued to exercise. Regardless of the peak that Otome had reached, he accelerated again and finally ushered in his peak. The essence of life spewed out. Straight into the depths of Otome's body, the scorching heat and thick viscous flow immediately filled her body, causing her body to tremble violently again. Chi. A fierce water arrow suddenly shot out from between Otome's legs and directly sprayed onto Naruto's clothes. Otome's eyes almost turned white, and she was almost dying. The feeling of happiness about to die has completely conquered her. She never thought that Naruto would be so fierce. 5 minutes later, Naruto held Otome in his arms and helped her organize her clothes. Her delicate body was still trembling from time to time, and the peak pleasure that was created above the peak could not be dissipated for a long time. She leaned weakly in Naruto's arms, letting Naruto tidy her clothes, while panting weakly and saying, Naruto-kun, I'm dying. You are too powerful. Quote. Naruto smiled. You brought it on yourself. Otome rolled his eyes at him, her body trembled again and said, I know I'm a virgin, but I'm still doing such a good job. You obviously want to kill me. Besides, you shot so much. We'll be pregnant. Sorry, I didn't wear a condom when you seduced me. Naruto squeezed her tender face and smiled. That's a man who is not gentle at all. Otome raised her pink fist and slammed him weakly. She already had feelings for Naruto that she couldn't let go of. Before, she just liked him blindly. Adores him, but after having sex this time, she has been completely conquered by Naruto's bravery, the feeling that she wants to die. She really can't do without Naruto. Even if Naruto would call her a lewd, slutty woman, she would recognize her. At this time, Naruto finished tidying her up, looked at the large piece of clothes on her chest that had been soaked by her, and shook her head helplessly. You can't go out to meet people after you made this look like this. Quote. Otome looked so embarrassed that Yuhi was so embarrassed. It was so embarrassing, she was actually peeing out of that happy feeling just now. Also stained Naruto-kun's clothes. He's laughing at himself now. What a shame. Naruto-kun, take off your clothes, let me wash it for you. Otome said softly. Isn't it necessary? Naruto said. Suddenly he took out his mobile phone and saw the missed text message from Yanye above, and his expression couldn't help but be taken aback. Otome looked over and looked at the text of the text message, but opened her mouth but did not speak. After reading the text message, Naruto suddenly lowered his head and said to Otome, by the way, Otome, you are not allowed to bully Yanyi in the future. Otherwise. Got it. What an eccentric guy. Before he could finish speaking, Otome slapped him angrily, but the power was indeed weak. However, what's our relationship now? You've already done it with me, but you care so much about that guy Yanyi. Could it be that you want to step on two boats? Otome suddenly asked again. Naruto was stunned for a moment, glanced at her, and said lightly, I won't give up Yanyi just because I had a relationship with you. Otome had an aggrieved expression on her face, and Naruto paused and said, but you won't give up on you who have a relationship with me. Do you understand what I mean? Otome could not help but stay. Naruto continued, so I hope you can get along in harmony, otherwise I will be very troubled. Humph. It turns out that you are also a careless person. After Otome heard this, she looked back at him and said angrily, raising her pink fist to hit him. As soon as Naruto stretched out his hand, he held her palm. He smiled and said, "Anyway, you brought it to the door yourself, and now you can't run away if you want to. You must not bully others in the future, you know." I know. It's really unfair to treat me like this for a single word." Although Otome complained, but Naruto grabbed her arm, and she felt the domineering tone that was completely different from before. Couldn't help but get drunk. Even if she was told to die now, she was willing. After getting her assurance, Naruto was relieved. For a girl with a criminal record like Otome, he was really worried about her, but with her assurance, at least Yanyi would not be bullied by her in the future. Of course, if she just perfunctory herself this time, Naruto will take some drastic measures as appropriate. At this time, the sound of footsteps came from the door of the equipment room, and Naruto listened carefully, with a strange look on his face. "What's wrong, Naruto-kun?" Otome lay in his arms and drew circles. Naruto whispered, "It's Yanyi. It's not good for her to see you like this." Otome couldn't help being slightly startled. She hurriedly left his arms with a soft whimper, but because her hands and feet were weakened by Naruto before, she knelt down on the ground at once, and finally stood up, slightly flustered. "Naruto-man-kun, you get rid of her first, I have to hide for a while." With that, she hurriedly got into the cabinet beside her. The door opened and Yanyi walked in. When she saw Naruto standing alone in the equipment room, she couldn't help but wonder a little. "Naruto, why have you been here for so long? Did you receive the text message just now?" Naruto smiled slightly. "I got it. Something was delayed just now. I didn't expect you to come here." He secretly wiped the cold sweat in his heart, looking at her pure eyes. Why did he feel guilty for cheating? Chapter 433 Crazy. When Yanyi came over, Naruto took the equipment she wanted and quickly exited the equipment room with her, leaving Otome to hide inside. After Naruto and the two were far away, Otome carefully came out from behind the cabinet, let out a long sigh of relief, and after finishing her clothes, she left quickly. At this time, Naruto's third class had already set up their own venue, and the world that had been busy for most of the day could finally breathe a sigh of relief. I'm so tired. If only Naruto-kun was next to him now, I could lean on his shoulder." After washing his face, he took a deep breath and muttered to the world in the corridor. "It's almost night. I'll be able to dance with Naruto-kun later. I'm really looking forward to it." Suddenly, the classmates on the playground in front were slightly riotous, and the world walked over curiously, only to see two figures walking over with their heads lowered. Ito Makoto and Zeong Taisuke. The world couldn't help but be stunned. Didn't they come for several days? And the news that day. Because the news about the two people engaging in BL in the hotel was exposed before, almost everyone in the school knew about them, and they knew that there were these two perverts in the first and third classes of high school, and it has been discussed by everyone until now. This incident has become a shame for the first and third classes of high school, and even the entire school. The world shuddered and quickly backed away from the two pervert guys. However, Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga walked around the playground cheekily towards the world, and the world frowned slightly. The two finally stopped in front of her, and the world said coldly, "What's the matter with you two? World, do you know about that too?" Makoto Ito raised his head and said with a lonely expression. "I'd rather not know that kind of thing. It's so disgusting. I didn't expect you to be such a person." The world stepped back and looked at the two of them. "I advise you to leave school early, otherwise you won't be able to stay in school at all. Stand in front of everyone." Quote. "I know." Makoto Ito nodded. He didn't dare to look at everyone's strange eyes. He was in great pain at home these 2 days. When he thought of that day, he felt like he was having a nightmare. Raising his head, he asked, "I just want to ask you now, where is Uzumaki Naruto?" "What are you asking Naruto-kun for?" The world frowned. I don't think he likes the two of you to bother him now. Hearing this, both of them were stunned for a moment, and when they heard the strong disgust in the world dialect, the thought in their hearts became firmer. Suddenly, Taisuke Zeyoung raised his head, stared at the world with a terrifying look and asked, "We just want to know where he is now. We're going to kill him." "What? You? What are you?" The world was taken aback by his resentful tone, and he stepped back a few steps and shouted, "Do you want to hurt Naruto? Why, I will never allow you to do this. Quote. Just tell us where he is now. It's between us and him." Makoto Ito said. "HMPH, you two bastards, I won't tell you where Naruto-kun is, and I won't allow you to hurt him." The world snorted and blocked in front of them with open arms. At this time, the surrounding classmates were also attracted and watched by a few people. Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeyoung couldn't stand the criticism from the people around them, so they pushed the world away and ran out. "Hey, what are you two going to do?" The world was startled, and quickly chased out. Listening to their tone just now, it seemed that they wanted to be detrimental to Naruto, which made her a little worried for him. Makoto Ito and the two came to the front of the teaching area. At the entrance of the corridor on the first floor, they saw the figure of Naruto coming, and their faces couldn't help showing a crazy look. The two looked at each other and suddenly rushed towards him. Past. At this time, Naruto had just helped Yanyi set up the classroom, and was about to go out for a stroll, but when he saw these two guys, the expression on his face couldn't help but be taken aback. At this time, the voice of the world came from behind them, "Naruto-kun. Be careful, they are going against you." Huh, Naruto couldn't help but glance at her, and out of the corner of his eyes, he suddenly caught a glimpse of two cold white lights flashing out of the hands of Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeyoung. Bastard! Go to hell! The two of them were holding daggers in their hands, and they had fallen into madness, and suddenly stabbed Naruto. These two people have endured the reprimands of their families, the scolding of the neighbors, and the public opinion of the society at home. They have long been unbearable in their hearts. They have lost their calm. The only thing they want to do now is to kill Naruto. This makes them what they are today, the culprit, at this point. Under the impulse of collapse, the two of them did something that they would never dare to think about, but they wanted to use a knife to assassinate Naruto. However, the purpose of the two is doomed to fail, and all this is their own fault. If the two hadn't acted maliciously on Naruto and Yanyi first, Naruto would not have seen through them and then cast demonic illusion. Seeing their crazy expressions, Naruto suddenly laughed. Sad fellow. When the two of them thought that their swords were about to stab Naruto, they stretched out two fingers in their hands to clamp the white dangling blades in their hands. The two were stunned at the same time, and raised their heads in astonishment. They felt that their daggers seemed to be clamped by iron clamps and could not move at all. But when they saw that this was actually due to Naruto's two fingers, they couldn't help shaking. Strange. Monster. Two fingers hold the blade. How is this possible? A trace of confusion, sluggishness, consternation, and deep fear flashed in the eyes of the two of them. Boom, boom. Immediately afterwards, the two of them only felt a pain in their abdomens, and the next moment they lost consciousness as soon as their eyes darkened. With two dings, the daggers in their hands fell to the ground. At this time, the world rushed to Naruto in a panic. Looking at the two people who fell to the ground and the two daggers on the ground, she couldn't help screaming and covering her mouth. Since the two were facing Naruto with their backs to the world only saw the scene where the two drew their daggers and rushed to Naruto, then suddenly stopped in front of Naruto, and then fell. "Naruto-kun, are you alright?" She quickly hugged Naruto, and with a nervous expression she reached out to turn over his clothes to check if his body was injured. Naruto shook his head. The world glanced at the two people who fell to the ground, and she hurriedly took out her mobile phone and called, "I must call the police and arrest these two lunatics." Chapter 434 Into the police station. Naruto didn't stop her. These two guys have always been malicious towards Yanyi. Naruto was very upset for a long time. He used demonic illusion to punish them a little last time, but unexpectedly the two of them became more serious. Kill yourself. As the sixth generation of Hokage, if they were placed in the Hokage world, the two would have been killed long ago. Now that he is in a society ruled by law, in order to avoid all kinds of unnecessary troubles, he resisted the urge to kill them, but Naruto wasn't easy to bully either. He was disturbed by these two people over and over again, and he wanted to get rid of this potential danger for a long time. Before, Makoto Ito lost his third leg with chakra by himself, and Taisuke Zeong was also ruined. But as long as they are still alive, the threat is still there. Although Naruto is not afraid of small roles like them, he has to think about Yanyi. Killing is to protect. Naruto thought so. He stretched out his hand to lift the two of them, and a weak chakra split into two and entered their bodies. No accident, the organs in the two people's bodies will start from the third leg within a year. It starts to fail and then slowly dies. Although this approach is a bit cruel, at present, it is also a method that can prevent anyone from seeing that it was Naruto. Matsuri at the academy. The assassination of Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga exploded in the school with the roar of a police car. All the students are scrambling to watch outside the cordon. Naruto and Sakai were surrounded by a group of police officers and several school leaders. Naruto classmate, what is the origin of this incident? Please follow us to the police station to take a record. As a witness, world classmates, you have to go with us too. The police said to the two. The world's face was a little disturbed. It was the first time she went to the police station, and there were so many students watching here, which made her usually a lively and cheerful girl a little bit unbearable. Naruto's hand quietly held her, showing her a reassuring smile. No problem, just go with you. Naruto nodded to the police and said lightly. Several people got into the police car and walked towards the police station. A group of students in the school were still there talking about it. Yanyi, who had heard the news long ago, looked at the back of the police car with a worried expression on his face. Otome was also stunned in place for a long time, and Naruto, who had done a good job with her before, was assassinated in a blink of an eye. Although nothing happened to him, Otome's heart was still frightened. Jumping wildly, if something happened to Naruto, she really didn't know what to do. And for Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeong, the two culprits, she was even more annoyed. A good Academy Matsuri was disturbed by this assassination incident. Although everyone was still busy with the Academy Matsuri, their minds were no longer on this. People flew to the police station, and the good boys were talking together. This Academy Matsuri has completely changed its nature. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the Matsuri Academy was still in progress. Yanyi had sent dozens of text messages to Naruto, but no response was received. Otome was also fidgeting, and the female partner beside her invited her to dance with absolutely no interest in agreeing. Finally, Naruto and the world who finished the transcript walked out of the police station. The world took a long breath. Naruto-kun, it seems that today's school Matsuri can't participate. Yeah, Naruto nodded helplessly. It's all to blame for those two bastards. The world said with hatred. Fortunately, Naruto-kun, you are not in an accident, otherwise I would never have forgiven these two guys. Damn, these two pervert and lunatic better spend their whole lives in prison. Even the world that used to have a good relationship with Makoto Ito couldn't help cursing after such a thing happened. Naruto patted her on the shoulder and comforted. Okay, world, it's not worth being angry with this kind of person now. I think it's too late to go back to school to attend the Academy Matsuri. Yeah, Naruto-kun, you're right, I'm not angry. The world heard a smile on his face. You even promised me to dance with me. Yeah, so let's go back to school first, Naruto said. The world nodded. After taking out the phone and turning it on, I called my parents at home, reported that they were safe, and by the way, I told Naruto that I had made a transcript. The parents of the world were very nervous, and they heard that the world had finished the transcript and was ready to go. When I went back to school with Naruto, I was relieved. But they were eager to see their daughter, but they asked her to go home quickly. The world had no choice but to agree to say goodbye to their parents and Naruto to go home. Before leaving, the world took Naruto's hand and reminded him, "Naruto-kun, don't forget, you owe me a dance. Next time, the Academy Matsuri must be returned to me." Naruto promised her with a slight smile. After taking her into the car, Naruto thought about it and turned on his phone, ready to call Yanyi. But after turning on the phone, I found that there were several missed call reminders and a dozen text messages. Most of the missed calls were from Mommy, and the text messages were all from Yanyi, and there were a few others. Unfamiliar number. He didn't expect that it was such a small thing that Mommy and Yanyi cared so much about him, which made him feel a little warm in his heart. Originally, the police wanted to contact Naruto's parents, but because Naruto's admission procedures were handled by the Mommy family, the police contacted the Mommy family. After several calls, Mommy was on her way. First, I called Mommy back. After the call, Mammy's clear and anxious voice came from the phone immediately. "Naruto, how are you? What's going on? How did you get assassinated? Are you all right now?" A series of questions flew over, and Naruto had to explain them one by one with a wry smile, and it took a long time to make it clear to her. Really, I was almost scared to death. Naruto, hurry up and go home, I'm already home. Knowing what happened, Mommy knew that Naruto was in no danger now, so she couldn't help shouting. He breathed, eagerly wanting to see him. After hanging up the phone, Naruto was going to go to school and then go back to see Mommy. After all, judging from the text messages from Yanyi, he must have been worried about himself for a long time. In addition, there were also caring greetings from several girls whose names Naruto didn't know in the text messages, and there were also text messages from Otome. Seeing this, Naruto hurriedly took a taxi to the school. Chapter 435 Go Back Together. Yanyi was sitting in the corner of the playground, with his hands clasped in front of his chest with an anxious face, murmuring as if he was praying for Naruto. Watching the classmates carry out the activities of the Academy Matsuri, she did not have any intention of participating. And Otome, who had just had a relationship with Naruto, didn't have the mind to play at this time, but was pulled by the female companions, but there was no way to do it. While worrying about Naruto's situation, she played with the female companions. "What's the matter, Otome? You seem to be very worried today." A female companion couldn't help but ask her when she saw her sullen face. Otome smiled reluctantly and said, "No, it's okay, let's continue playing." "Is it really all right?" On the other hand, Shenna also called his friend World, and after learning that World had returned home, he could not help but let out a slight sigh. For Makoto Ito actually did something like assassinating Naruto, she was heartbroken, because she remembered that Makoto Ito was not like this before, and also remembered how warmly he encouraged her when she first entered school. Why is it now so, even a little crazy? Is it really possible to be so crazy for a girl you like? She didn't understand, but she knew that it was Makoto Ito who was wrong. Hey, Wei Wei sighed, feeling a little gloomy for a moment. At this time, a familiar figure suddenly came into view, and he couldn't help but be slightly shocked. It's Naruto. Did he come out safe too? As soon as Naruto got off the car and entered the school, he saw the moment standing on the side of the playground. In an instant, Naruto greeted him. She came back to her senses in an instant and saw Naruto walking towards her. Strictly speaking, she didn't have much affection for him in her heart, but as a classmate, she was in contact every day, watching his interactions with Yanyi, watching the world change. His obsession, she always had a feeling that she couldn't see through this boy. His ignorant appearance when he first entered school, and his disinterested in everything but sleep-like character, seems to be unable to attract the attention of girls at all. However, he has become the dream lover of almost all girls now. His friendly smile, his amazing results in exams, his tenderness towards his girlfriend, and his fearless appearance have made the girls in the school unable to extricate themselves. Among them, her friend World is a typical example. Such a boy is indeed much better than Makoto Ito. However, there are so many things that people don't know about him, why he can get such good grades in the test while sleeping in class, why he has such strong physical fitness without seeing him exercising, and why. Anyway, there are too many mysteries in him, and she didn't dare to explore or be curious, because she was afraid that she would be as deeply immersed in the world as the world, so she kept persuading the world to stop participating. Such a boy, only a girl like Yan Yi can keep him. Shin, what's wrong with you? Naruto looked up at her blankly, and couldn't help but feel very strange. Ah, no, it's all right. Instantly looked startled. Naruto nodded, smiled at her and turned to leave, planning to find Yan Yi. Ah, wait. At this moment, Shanna suddenly turned around and stopped him. Huh, is there something wrong? Naruto stopped and turned to look at her suspiciously. There was a slight flicker in his brown eyes, and he walked towards Naruto and asked softly, "You weren't injured in the matter of Makoto Ito and Taisuke Zeong just now, right?" Naruto was stunned for a moment, and he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He didn't expect that the squad leader, who had always been on the wrong side of the road, suddenly greeted him. He laughed and said, "Thank you for your concern, those two guys can't hurt me." In an instant, Yuhi's expression turned slightly, and he hummed slightly, "Oh, that's all right." Naruto smiled lightly, waved his hand to her, and turned away. Looking at Naruto's back, his eyes flashed for a moment, and he felt a little strange. Why did he ask him this for no reason? This should be considered a greeting among classmates, the normal kind. On the other side of the playground, bypassing the crowded celebration venue, Naruto found Yan Yi sitting quietly. When Yan Yi saw Naruto appear in front of her, she finally plunged into his arms, holding Naruto's waist tightly with both hands, and couldn't help crying. "Ooh, Naruto, you are finally here. I'm so worried about you." She hugged Naruto tightly, the two big mountains of meat squeezed Naruto's chest. Naruto he hugged her gently, smiled bitterly and comforted her softly. "Yan Yi, didn't I send you a text message before? So why are you worried? Nothing will happen to me, you have to believe me." Yan Yi hummed, raised his head and looked at him with tears in his eyes, "But I just can't worry about it. I really don't want such a thing to happen again." Naruto scratched her nose lightly. "Okay, am I fine now? It's so late, we should go back." At this moment, Otome, who was playing with her female companions, suddenly saw Naruto's figure through the crowd. "Ah, it's Naruto-kun," she couldn't help but exclaimed. The female companions around looked at her strangely. What's wrong? Didn't Naruto-kun go to the police station? However, before Otome could answer, she saw her running out like a fly. "Naruto-kun." Otome ran in front of Naruto and Yan Yi, watching Yan Yi holding Naruto's arm tightly, and looking at herself with hostile eyes, the expression on her face she couldn't help being a little embarrassed. Although she had promised Naruto to stop bullying Yan Yi, it was difficult for her to get along with Yan Yi. Now, as soon as the two met in front of Naruto, she suddenly remembered what happened in the toilet at that time. Wei Yuhi, Otome forced herself to stop thinking about those things, and instead asked, "Naruto-kun, the police didn't embarrass you, right?" Naruto nodded slightly. Seeing Yan Yi's hostile gaze, he felt a little embarrassed. He glanced at Otome and gave her a reassuring look. Otome smiled and said, "It's fine if Naruto-kun is fine, haha, then I won't bother you." After she finished speaking, she ran away again, a look of loneliness flashed across her face. At this time, Naruto behind him suddenly said, "Otome, wait a minute, let's go back together." Hearing this, Yan Yi couldn't help but be taken aback. Chapter 436 Christmas is Coming. Naruto's invitation touched Otome's heart. It turned out that she also had a place in his heart, and he did not neglect himself because Yan Yi was here. With joy in her heart, she couldn't help but turn around and laughed and said, "Naruto-kun, I have to buy something later. I'll go home with Natsumi and the others." After speaking, she turned around and ran towards her friends. Naruto smiled slightly, and couldn't help but look at her with admiration. In the past, she gave her the impression of being a little selfish, and she could even bully Yanyi for the sake of being jealous. I didn't expect that she would make such a big concession now, rejecting herself and letting herself and Yanyi go back alone. It seems that after breaking her body, she has indeed changed a lot. After sending Yanyi home, Naruto quickly returned to his home. Mommy couldn't wait in the room for a long time, because Naruto was assassinated by a classmate. She was very worried, although she already knew that Naruto was fine, but if she didn't take a look at it in person, she was still very uneasy. The moment Naruto entered the room, Mommy, who was sitting in the living room, immediately let out a coquettish cry. With a whimper, her delicate body quickly plunged into Naruto's arms, colliding with him. "Ooh, Naruto, I'm so worried about you. What's going on? How can you kill me? Are you okay?" A series of questions came out with her crying, and Naruto picked her up and had to explain them one by one. Mommy had already come home from get off work today. After learning about this, she told her parents and hurried over by car regardless of whether they agreed or not. At this time, after listening to Naruto's explanation, seeing that he was safe and sound, a big stone in his heart finally fell, and he couldn't help but hug him tightly, for fear that he would disappear in the next moment. "Naruto, I really want to be scared to death by you. If something happens to you, I really don't know how to live," Mommy said softly, leaning on his chest with lingering fears. Naruto hugged her delicate body, feeling her fast-beating heart calm down quietly, and couldn't help lowering his head and kissing her tender face gently. Mammy's delicate body shook slightly. She raised her head, her cherry lips opened slightly, her beautiful eyes closed slightly, and her hands slowly climbed up Naruto's neck. That night, the two enjoyed themselves happily. Early the next morning, Mommy set off directly from Kana City to go to work in Bedmaster City, while Naruto continued to go to school. Academy Matsuri. Due to the affairs of Makoto Ito and Taisuke Sawanaga, the school began ideological and moral education, and the management of students became more strict. Naruto was still the same as usual, without any changes. If there is a change, the only change is that his seat has been moved to the seat where Makoto Ito was sitting, which means that he is now at the same table as the world. This is a very happy thing for the world. She became the same table with Naruto, who she was deeply obsessed with. During the day, the two were almost always together. Compared with Yanyi, she spent more time with Naruto. Want more. Although Naruto still sleeps most of the time, thinking about his own business, but the world can already feel it is a very happy thing as long as the world can watch Naruto silently. After school, Naruto often goes home with Yanyi. However, although the relationship between him and Yanyi is already very good, there is always a lack of that layer of relationship between the two. Before Yanyi mentioned that he would give himself to Naruto many times, he was always rejected by various accidentally disturbed, so now she is very entangled, not knowing whether she still wants to mention this to Naruto. After all, it is very rare for a girl to mention this kind of thing over and over again. If she made such a request to Naruto again and again, it would be too lewd and slutty. With such thoughts in mind, Yanyi became very resentful every time he looked at Naruto. Why didn't Naruto make such demands on himself? If it was Naruto, he would definitely agree immediately. But she observed that Naruto's eyes when he occasionally looked at her body also proved that he wanted her. In fact, it wasn't that Naruto didn't want Yanyi, but that he found that most of his time was taken up by Mommy Otome and the world. During the day, most of the school was haunted by the world, and occasionally he was dragged by Otome into a secret place when he took time out. Sex in the corner, love, even if you want to go out and play with Yanyi on weekends, because Mommy is at home on weekends. Therefore, Naruto can only be with Yanyi during lunch or school every day, and occasionally have time to walk home together. The most terrible thing is that Yanyi's family education is very strict. She is not allowed to go out at night at all, and it will be troublesome to even come back late, and Yanyi is a little repulsive to do it outside, love. This caused Naruto to have no relationship with her so far. Fortunately, Naruto usually hangs out with Otome and Mommy, otherwise, surrounded by this group of beauties, he might have been suffocated to death. In addition, the world often invites Naruto to play at her house. If it wasn't for Naruto being occupied by Yanyi every time after school, I'm afraid the world would have already attacked him. Therefore, the sense of crisis in Yanyi's heart became stronger. This busy and fragrant day has lasted for about a month, and finally the tranquility was completely broken on this day. Because today is Christmas Day. It also happens to be Saturday. Early in the morning, Mommy carried the cake into Naruto's room, planning to spend this Christmas with him. On the other hand, the world also took the chocolate cake that he had carefully prepared in the car and headed to Naruto's house. Naruto, who had just woken up in bed, saw Mommy smiling with a big bag of snacks at first sight. "Ah, Mommy, you came so early." Naruto said hello, and turned on the phone next to him to see that there was a blessing and an invitation from Yanyi. "Naruto, Mom and Dad are out for Christmas tonight, can you come to my house when you have time? I've prepared a cake for you." Seeing this text message, Naruto was stunned for a while, then looked at Mommy in front of him, and his head suddenly became big. At this time, Mommy gently put down what was in her hand, quietly climbed onto Naruto's bed, got into his quilt and giggled, "Naruto, why did you get up so late? You were waiting for me to use that kind of thing. Ways to help you wake up." Just as Naruto was about to speak, Mammy's head got under Naruto's bed, fell down between his legs, took off Naruto's trousers, and opened her soft mouth to suck Naruto into it. Oh, Naruto trembled slightly, and he was so stimulated in the early morning that he couldn't help but groaned and groaned. Chapter 437 Go to Yanyi's house. Hee, Naruto, are you awake yet? Mommy raised her head and propped up the quilt, and looked at Naruto with a wink. Mommy, Naruto whispered, reaching out and holding her head, don't stop. Hee, obey, Naruto-sama, Mommy laughed, and continued to lower her head to bite Naruto hard. Naruto immediately felt an unparalleled pleasure, the warm little cavity, the constantly squirming soft flesh, and the silky lilac uvula, which made him completely unbearable. His hands pressed her head and couldn't help speeding up. Speed. Just when the two of them were at a critical moment, the door suddenly rang, and the two of them trembled. Mommy raised her head and sat up, panting slightly and asking strangely, who would it be early in the morning? Naruto shook his head. He was enjoying himself, but it was also very unpleasant to be disturbed at this time, and after being stimulated by Mommy, how could he still be sleepy? However, because someone knocked on the door, the two had to stop. Mommy licked her soft lips, left the bedroom with a slight smile, and went to open the door. Naruto was also ready to get dressed and get up, but the high bulge under him still made him very uncomfortable. After getting dressed, Mommy walked into the bedroom, looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto, the world classmate is here. She came to celebrate your birthday with you last time, right? It seems that you have a very good relationship with her." Good. She was a little jealous. Naruto not only has a girlfriend Yanyi at school, but he also has such a good relationship with the world. I really don't want people to think about it. Naruto was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the world to come. Could it be that she also came to find her for Christmas? With an embarrassed smile, he hurried to wash up. A few minutes later, Naruto walked out of the bedroom and came to the living room, where he saw Shizuo and Mommy sitting on the sofa, chatting with each other. Seeing Naruto appear, the world greeted with a chuckle, "Good morning, Naruto-kun." Well, good morning. Naruto also greeted. He found that the world was wearing a long beige dress today. The skirt could barely cover the bend of her legs, revealing two delicate snow-white calves. On the pair of glittering and lovely jade feet, she was wearing a pair of small yuhi-colored high-heeled shoes. It looks as pure and moving as the sister next door, but it is sexy and cute. Naruto-kun, it's a pity, I brought a cake. Unfortunately I heard that sister Mommy also brought it. I'm afraid we can't finish it. World suddenly shook his head and said, "It's okay, you can eat it at night if you can't finish it." Naruto smiled and walked over to open the chocolate cake sent by the world. Anyway, I'm hungry now, so let's start it first. Okay, Naruto, if you like it, you can eat it. A happy smile appeared on the face of the world. Naruto was able to eat the cake she made, which was a very happy thing for her. Mommy on the side also cut it open and put it in her mouth to taste. World, your craftsmanship is really good. It's much better than mine. Mommy exclaimed sincerely. No, it's normal. After eating the world's cake, Naruto's stomach is also full. Originally, Mommy planned to spend Christmas alone with Naruto, because she was going home to spend Christmas with her parents in the afternoon, so she didn't have time to be with Naruto at night. Now that the world has come, it can be said that Mammy's plan has been disrupted again. And the world also wanted to spend Christmas alone with Naruto, and came to Naruto with joy, but Mommy was in Naruto's house again. The world has always been very suspicious about the relationship between her and Naruto, but it is not easy to ask directly. Therefore, she is also very confused. In an atmosphere where both sides were a little uncomfortable, Christmas with the three of them was over. Soon it was afternoon. Mommy said goodbye to Naruto and left, and the world was tired of playing, although she really wanted to stay, but I had already told my family that I would go back early, so I had no choice but to say goodbye and leave. Naruto thought that Mommy would stay and live with him. After all, she hooked up her bathing fire in the morning. If she didn't solve it, Naruto would definitely be upset. However, he didn't force it. Although he couldn't spend a wonderful Christmas Eve with Mommy, the thought of going to Yanyi's house later made his mind alive again. Maybe, today is a good opportunity to. Naruto thought like this, and when he sent the world out, he took a taxi and headed for Yanyi's house. Yanyi's parents had strongly asked Yanyi to go out for Christmas with them, but in order to have a Christmas with Naruto, Yi found all kinds of reasons and refused to go out. She is a girl who never lies, in order to cover up in Naruto. Relationship, rose Yuhi's face and explained to his parents for a long time before barely able to cope. But it has also made Yanyi's parents suspicious. After getting out of the car at the door of Yanyi's house, Naruto rang the doorbell of her house. Just after a few rings, the door was quickly opened, revealing a beautiful face. Naruto, come in. Welcome to my house. Yanyi was wearing a homestyle white casual shirt, a pair of loose lavender slacks, and a beige apron around his chest. He trembled slightly, making him seem demure and mature. Naruto was amazed. He closed the door after entering the room, and was pressed by Yanyi on the sofa. On the table in the living room, a large white cake that had been opened wide was displayed in front of him, exuding the fragrance of cream. Yanyi, have you been waiting for me? He couldn't help asking. Yanyi smiled lightly, then brought out a plate of fruit and other snacks from the kitchen and put it on the table, and said, Naruto, I'm the only one in my house tonight. My parents and my sister are out. Let's have a good Christmas for the two of us. After speaking, Yanyi turned on the TV in the living room, and then sat down next to Naruto's arms, holding Naruto's arms tightly, those towering chests tightly pressed against Naruto's arms, sending him a silent temptation. Naruto, come and eat a grape. Yanyi happily stretched out a small purple grape and handed it to Naruto's mouth for him to eat. Feeling Yanyi's enthusiasm, Naruto didn't refuse, and opened his mouth to put the grapes and her green and jade-like fingers into his mouth. Yanyi's body trembled slightly, a layer of Yuhi dizziness appeared on his face, and he quickly drew back his hand. Yanyi, when will your parents and sister come back today? Looking down at Yanyi, who is so seductive, Naruto couldn't help asking. Chapter 438 Yanyi's Gift. Yanyi seemed to read something from Naruto's eyes. Hearing that, his body shook slightly, and Yuhi said with a moist face, They should come back in 3 or 4 hours. Really? Naruto couldn't help but his heart skipped a beat. Well, Yanyi nodded lightly, suddenly grabbed Naruto's big hand, exhaled like a lantern. Naruto, today, I want to give you a gift. Huh? Close your eyes. Naruto shut up according to the words, secretly thinking, she won't kiss herself again, will she? A small voice sounded, and after a while, Yan Yi's voice came, okay. Naruto opened his eyes and looked at Yan Yi in front of him. Forehead. However, in the next instant, he was already there, staring straight at the scene in front of him, and his mind was a little confused. Because the upper body of Yan Yi in front of him took off his apron, unbuttoned the shirt inside, pushed off the lavender hood, and completely presented the two towering and upright Roshan in Naruto's sight. The snow-white skin exudes a Kiba-like luster, and the two pink Yuhi buds on her breasts, which are full of D cups and above, are exposed to the air, quivering gently with her breathing. Yan Yi, Naruto swallowed, staring at her with burning eyes. Yan Yi lowered her head shyly, clasped her hands in front of her chest, trying to cover her body, but she tried hard not to cover it up. She felt Naruto's fruit-eating eyes fall on her, and she was full of love. He jumped violently. Is it too obscene and slutty to do this by yourself? Will Naruto hate himself for this? However, if you don't do this, you and Naruto will no longer make progress. Seeing other girls getting closer and closer to Naruto, how can you be indifferent? Naruto, gift, do you like it? Yan Yi said this, her tender face had already swelled to Yuhi, and her body was trembling slightly. It's so strange. I used to hate this kind of thing the most, why do I expect this so much now? Yan Yi thought to himself. Naruto's body stiffened at an astonishing speed, and then he opened his arms and hugged Yan Yi fiercely into his embrace. Yan Yi, I like it very much, he said softly beside her ear, reaching out and hugging her whole body. Yan Yi snorted softly, her body volleyed into the air, and the two tender white fleshy mountains on her chest trembled violently. She was so frightened that she quickly hugged Naruto's neck with both hands, and the white tender flesh on her chest immediately shook. It was close to Ming's face. Yan Yi, where is your room? Naruto asked in a muffled voice as he was buried between the two Yamanaka buildings. Ah, it's so itchy. As soon as Naruto spoke, the hot breath suddenly sprayed onto Yan Yi's sensitive chest, causing her to tremble slightly. Room. Naruto saw that there were two small doors over there, and regardless of which was Yan Yi's room, he opened one of them and got in. Then, he gently placed Yan Yi on the white sheet. Naruto, I'm a little scared. Yan Yi's pair of jade arms were tightly hooked around Naruto's neck, and he was too nervous to let go. Don't be afraid, Yan Yi, you are going to be my woman today. You should relax and be happy. Naruto nibbled on her crystal clear lips, and one hand already held one of Yi's left breast. The huge size made it difficult for Naruto to hold it with one hand. He could only gently shake the pink bud between his fingers. Ah, Naruto. Yan Yi opened his mouth and groaned softly, his voice so charming. Are you ready, Yan Yi? Naruto quietly took off his clothes and her clothes, and the two embraced on the bed naked. Yan Yi was extremely nervous, and with her beautiful eyes closed, she did not dare to look at Naruto, but her heart was filled with joy and happiness while she was nervous. It's finally here. I finally want to do H's thing with Naruto. I can finally go one step further with Naruto. Tears of happiness welled up in her eyes. Naruto lowered his head and kissed her gently, salty, with a greenish taste. Looking at the slightly trembling eyelashes on her tightly closed eyes, he couldn't help laughing. Yan Yi, relax. Well, I see. Yan Yi's pair of round and tender thighs slowly opened, welcoming Naruto into him. Closing, wrapping around his waist, feeling the burning sensation of that huge fiery thing clinging to his mysterious area, Yan Yi trembled physically and mentally. Naruto, okay, it's really big. She said a little scaredly, will it hurt? Naruto smiled lightly, and his body sank slightly. Don't be nervous, in fact, you will be very happy after entering. Yan Yi opened Yuhiran's small mouth slightly. Naruto's body sank more and more, and he had entered the Taoyuan Valley, with a layer of obstacles blocking the front. Yan Yi frowned slightly and grabbed Naruto's shoulders with both hands. It's a little tight, let's relax a little bit. Naruto lowered his head and covered her soft cherry lips, sticking out his tongue and lingering in her mouth. Yanyi was slightly lost in his gentleness and relaxed. Suddenly, Naruto's body suddenly sank again. Yanyi raised his head and screamed in pain. His small mouth suddenly opened into an O shape. A look of pain appeared on his face, and the 10 fingers of both hands were pinched into Naruto's flesh tightly, almost scratching Naruto to bleed. Come. Does it hurt? Naruto asked softly, feeling the incomparable tightness there. Yanyi opened her mouth and took a few breaths, and then she regained her senses, and when she heard Naruto's gentle voice, she couldn't help shaking her head. No, it doesn't hurt, I'm very happy now, finally, and Naruto. It fits together. A trace of blood flowed down Yanyi's delicate buttocks onto the white bed sheet, and a beautiful Yuhi plum blossom bloomed. Naruto knew that this was her first time, and Yanyi's expression was too nervous, not as smooth as Otome and Mami's first time. This point, from the incomparable tightness and suction under her body at this time. Learned. After a while, Yanyi got used to Naruto's size. Zhao Yuhi said softly with a face. Naruto, you can move now. Naruto nodded slightly, and his big mouth sealed her lips again. In her silent response, her body swayed slightly. From slow to fast, from shallow to deep, under the guidance of Naruto, Yanyi's body was finally no longer tense, and gradually relaxed, which also brought her infinite joy beyond pain. Chapter 439 Peking Guixin. In the bedroom, there are infinitely beautiful, charming scenery, and bursts of coquettish voices. Yanyi also finally realized the incomparably fulfilling and joyful feeling after the tension and pain. This feeling made her unable to extricate herself from it and lost herself in it. She never knew that doing this kind of thing would have such a wonderful feeling, and even make her feel so good. Such a conservative person also moaned and groaned freely. Naruto, it feels so strange, it's hot, it's kind, it looks like it's about to pee. Yanyi whispered, his head resting on Naruto's shoulders for a while, panting weakly. Yuhi's face is full of intoxication and contentment, and even her body is exuding bursts of tide Yuhi. Her snow-white and tender thighs had already wrapped around Naruto's waist at some point, and her delicate buttocks swayed with Naruto's ups and downs. The sound of water was rushing, and the sheets had already been spilled by her except for blood. Of love, the liquid wets a piece. Naruto, I'm going to lose it. Under the accelerated movement of Naruto, Yanyi opened his mouth and shouted, his head suddenly tilted back, a small mouth opened slightly, and his body bowed tensely. Followed by a violent tremor. I'm going to die. Naruto, I'm going to die. After a long time, Yanyi recovered from this peak of pleasure, and before he closed his small mouth, he gasped say. Naruto's hands vigorously rubbed the towering pair on her chest. The 2 mountains of meat were constantly changing in shape in his hands. In addition to bringing Yanyi an extremely comfortable feeling, she also felt very ashamed. But I never thought that Naruto would take care of her breasts, which are far more developed than their peers. It turns out that the boys really like the older girls here. Thinking of this, Yanyi couldn't help but be slightly delighted, and the pleasure came to her in waves. At this time, outside the door, a petite figure quietly came to the door, took out the key, opened the door, sneaked into the living room, found the untouched cake on the table, and rolled his eyes. Cannot help but search around. Sister, are you there? She is Yanyi's sister Guixin. Because Yanyi didn't go to Christmas with them, Guixin made an excuse to sneak back while her parents were having dinner, wanting to see what her sister was doing at home alone. Did he secretly invite brother Naruto to come over for Christmas? I have to say that Guixin's hunch was too accurate, and she knew her sister too well. Yanyi did indeed invite Naruto over to spend Christmas together. However, what Guixin didn't expect was that her sister didn't just spend Christmas with Naruto, because at this time they were doing unimaginable things in the room. Guixin shouted a few times. Where would he hear Yanyi, who was in the throes of pleasure, and Naruto was also immersed in Yanyi's coquettish whistling and low panting, and did not notice Guixin's voice. Strange, my sister obviously prepared a cake, why isn't anyone here? Guixin murmured with a puzzled look on her face. Suddenly, she turned her ears to listen, and an incredible sound entered her ears. What is that? Following the source of the faint voice, Gui Xin came to the door of her room. Is it here? Reaching out to hold the doorknob, Gui Xin's body suddenly shook. Ah, Naruto, okay, so comfortable, you made me so comfortable. Again, hurry up, hurry up. Is this your sister's voice? Gui Xin's mind immediately went blank, and the sudden change made him suddenly at a loss. Sister is in her room. And Naruto brother is there. What are they doing? Gui Xin is already a junior high school student, and her body has already begun to develop. Since the last monarchy, she has become more and more curious about the opposite sex, and sometimes she even had that shameful dream. Because of this, she secretly bought some adult books and DVDs, and watched them secretly when no one was at home. At this time, what the elder sister's cry in the room meant, after being stunned for 3 seconds, Gui Xin immediately understood. Her tender face instantly turned into a yuhi color. How can you do this? Sister and brother Naruto actually took advantage of everyone's time out to do such things at home. This is too outrageous. Too unbelievable. A woman as conservative as her sister could still make such a shameful cry. At this moment, Gui Xin was stunned, her thighs couldn't help but come together, quietly grinding, and a heart thumped, as if it was about to pop out of her throat. Moreover, her feet seemed to be nailed by nails, and it was difficult to leave. Standing in front of the door, she kept listening to her sister's breathing from inside. Naruto, I can't do it. Naruto, okay, so intense. So intense. Well, yes, it's going to break. Good brother, I'm going. Following Yan Yi's long and smooth moan, Gui Xin's legs softened and she knelt on the floor outside the door. Her delicate thighs were tightly pressed together, and a wet feeling penetrated into the pants along the small inner. Gui Xin is also wet. After a while, the room groaned and moaned again, and Gui Xin stared at the door with disbelief. Finally, her jade hand trembled and reached out to the doorknob, gently, quietly, twisting it. A gap in the door was slightly exposed. Gui Xin leaned over, and a pair of beautiful eyes looked into the room through the small gap. The next moment, she couldn't help but let out a small exclamation, and hurriedly reached out to cover her delicate lips. At this time, Naruto inside was fighting fiercely with Yan Yi, and he didn't notice Gui Xin's peeking. Gui Xin's soft cry just now seemed to arouse his doubts. He paused slightly and murmured, Yan Yi, I seem to have heard other voices. However, Yan Yi was already immersed in that boundless happiness at this time. She raised her pretty buttocks and waved an invitation to Naruto. Well, Naruto, it should be, you heard wrong bar. Seeing Yan Yi lying on the bed, his pouty buttocks gave him a huge temptation. He didn't expect that Yan Yi would be so lewd and slutty when he entered the state. Excited in his heart, he snorted and threw himself again. Go up and enter her body from behind. Ah! Yan Yi raised her head and groaned, her long black hair suddenly raised behind her, and the boundless pleasure made her tremble with excitement. Chapter 440 Strange Atmosphere. Sister, how can you do this? The scenes of this scene brought a huge visual impact to Gui Xin, who was still a minor. Although she had also seen some adult movies and comics, it happened in front of her at this time, and it was still in her room. The scene of her sister and Naruto's brother shocked her little heart. Seeing her sisters groaning and groaning, lying on the bed in an extremely shy pose, Gui Xin felt that it was inconceivable. After a long time, the voice inside gradually fell, and Yan Yi was finally unbearable, and lay powerlessly in Naruto's arms. Looking at the time, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. After doing more than 2 hours of love, Yan Yi, who had broken his body for the first time, was really overwhelmed. Naruto, my parents and sister are coming back soon, let's clean up as soon as possible. Yan Yi said weakly, but he accidentally touched the wound under him, frowned slightly, and let out a coquettish cry again. Fell down. Naruto hugged her gently and smiled. Sorry, it's too intense. Yan Yi, Just lie down for a while, I'll just sort it out. Getting up, Naruto looked at the messy sheets and the clothes scattered everywhere, and couldn't help but let out a wry smile. This time with Yan Yi, it went a bit too far. I didn't expect that she was not as conservative as usual when she broke her body for the first time. After letting go, the enthusiasm she showed was completely beyond her imagination, so that she was uncontrollable, and she made several highs and tides. On the other side, when Gui Xin outside the room saw that Naruto and her sister were done, she panicked and quickly stood up to hide. It would be bad if they found themselves hiding outside the door and peeking. When she got up, she realized that her bottom had become wet, and her panties had become sticky there, so uncomfortable. However, in order to avoid being discovered by Naruto and the two of them, Gui Xin couldn't care less about it, and without closing the door, she quietly ran into the living room, then quietly opened the door and went out, knocking again. Hearing the knock on the door, both Naruto couldn't help being startled. Yan Yi was still lying on the bed weakly. Although she was already dressed, the pain under her body still made it difficult for her to move. Not good. Naruto, maybe my parents and the others are back, Yan Yi said in a panic. Although Naruto is not afraid of being known by others, in order to take care of Yan Yi's face, he must also cover up the current relationship between the two from being discovered by her parents. After hiding some traces of things, Naruto helped Yan Yi out of the bedroom, and suddenly found that the bedroom door was not closed. People are in fascination, who cares? After coming to the living room and letting Yan Yi sit down, Naruto went to open the door. The door opened, and unexpectedly, he only saw Gui Xin standing at the door, and their parents did not come back. While Naruto was relieved, he couldn't help but smile at Gui Xin. Gui Xin, why did you come back so early? He didn't know that Gui Xin had already seen everything about the two of them before, otherwise it would be regarded as Naruto's face will also be embarrassed. I came back early. Gui Xin's face was like Yuhi, and she didn't dare to look at Naruto. Well, then come in quickly. Naruto stepped aside and let Gui Xin enter the room, feeling that something was wrong. Gui Xin hurriedly ran into the living room and sat on the sofa. Her heart was beating so fast. In order to divert her attention, she whispered to the big cake on the table, "Wow. Sister, did you prepare such a big cake?" "Yes. Do you want to eat with Naruto brother?" Yan Yi sat on the side with a hint of Yuhi on her face. Her eyes were like water. Her body was sour. She didn't dare to look into her sister's eyes. She smiled and lowered her head and said, "Yeah, you're going out with your parents, I'll be ready. Spend Christmas with Naruto." "Oh, it turns out that my elder sister has already planned it." Gui Xin stepped forward and teased, noticing the charming Yuhiran on her elder sister's face, and in her mind came the idea of her elder sister and Naruto doing it before. Love scene. At this time Naruto came over, sat down beside Gui Xin, picked up the knife and cut a few pieces of the cake, smiled and said, "Since Gui Xin is back, let's eat cake together, I happen to be hungry too." Quote. Gui Xin was very nervous sitting next to Naruto. Her face couldn't help but Yuhi. Her eyes couldn't help falling on Naruto's crotch. Her eyes flickered, she didn't know what she was thinking. Naruto handed her the cut cake, and she was still in a daze. "Gui Xin," Naruto called out. Oh, thank you, Naruto brother." Gui Xin hurriedly came to her senses and came up with the cake. Her fingers touched Naruto's big hand, but she couldn't help but tremble. The jade hand trembled, and the cake fell to her immediately before it was firmly connected. Black skirt and thighs. Ah! Gui Xin let out a coquettish cry, at a loss. Naruto couldn't help but froze for a moment, then smiled and took a tissue to help her wipe it. I'll do it myself." Gui Xin hurriedly took the tissue from Naruto's hand and staggered to the bathroom. Naruto and Yan Yi couldn't help but look at each other. A little strange, their Gui Xin always felt a little strange today. After a while, Gui Xin came back again, but she didn't dare to sit back on Naruto's side with her face Yuhi, but sat next to her sister. Naruto had to cut a new cake for her. The three of them finished eating the cake in a very strange atmosphere. and Naruto finally said goodbye and left. Yanyi wanted to send Naruto away, but because of some inconvenience, he sat there and didn't dare to get up. He was afraid that his sister would find something abnormal, so he asked Guixin to go out and send him off. Guixin had no choice but to calmly send Naruto out. After returning, she finally let out a long sigh, looking at her sister with a strange look in her eyes. At this time, Yanyi was also preparing to go back to the room to rest. When she opened the door, she realized that the place where she and Naruto were was actually not her room, but her sister Guixin's room. This is bad. I haven't completely cleaned up just now. If my sister goes to sleep, she will smell something strange. Well, I hope my sister doesn't find out. Yan Yexi leaned against the door with a face, and prayed secretly in her heart. But she didn't know that her younger sister Guixin had taken everything in her eyes for a long time. After returning to her room, she looked at her big bed. Yuhi's face was dizzy.